It started with the lamp. I know that sounds small. Dumb, even. But I swear it wasn't on when I left for work that morning. I always make a point to turn it off, partly for the electricity bill, mostly out of habit. I live alone, so if something's different when I come home, it's because I changed it. But when I walked through the front door that Tuesday, the warm orange light in the corner was glowing like it had been on all day. I stood in the doorway for a while, coat half off, staring at it. Then I laughed to myself, must have just forgotten it. Simple as that. God knows my brain's been a little scattered lately. Work's been a grind, nothing dramatic, just constant. Meetings that go nowhere, emails I never remember sending, polite conversations I forget as soon as they're over. So yeah, a lamp left on? Not exactly earth-shattering. But then it happened again. And again. Every day for the rest of the week. By Friday, I even took a photo of it before leaving. Off, completely off, cord unplugged. When I came back, plugged in, on. There's no one else with a key. I asked the landlord if maintenance had come by and he checked his little clipboard, said no, nobody's been scheduled for my unit in months. I started locking the deadbolt from the inside with a little trick I learned online. Shoved a folded note in the frame so it would fall if the door was open. Next day, lamps on, notes on the floor. I didn't sleep much that night. You know when you're sleep deprived and the world starts to feel off? Not just tired, but like reality's been twisted a few degrees to the left. That's how I felt at work Monday. Sitting in my cubicle, trying to focus on a spreadsheet, while something in the fluorescent light overhead buzzed in this high-pitched, barely there frequency. I started wondering if maybe I was hearing things no one else could. Around lunch, I asked Kelly, she sits in the pod next to mine, if she noticed anything weird about the lights. She gave me this look, like she was trying to be polite but really just wanted me to go away. No? I think they're fine. Right. Of course. That's been happening too. People acting weird. Distant. Like I'm making them uncomfortable, even though I swear I haven't changed anything. Eye contact that doesn't hold. Smiles that flicker too fast. Or maybe I have changed. I catch myself doing odd things sometimes. Like staring at the break room clock for long stretches, not realizing how much time's passed. Or typing out full emails, reading them, and then deleting every word. It's like I'm always waiting for something. Some thought just on the edge of forming. Some presence just behind me. One night, I came home and everything was normal. For once. Lamp was off. Door was locked. Nothing moved. I should have been relieved. But instead, I felt worse. It felt like something was watching me not be afraid. I ordered Thai, sat on the couch, turned on a movie just for noise. Every few minutes I'd look over at the lamp. Still off. Around midnight, I gave in and went to bed. Didn't sleep. Just laid there, ears straining. There was this noise around 3 a.m. soft, barely there, like fabric brushing against wood. I sat up, holding my breath. Silence. I got up, turned on the light in the hallway. Everything looked normal. I almost went back to bed, almost, until I saw the photo on my fridge. It was upside down. It's a picture of my sister and me, taken 2 years ago at some family barbecue. We're smiling like idiots. I know I didn't put it that way. No one else could have. I stared at it for a long time. Then I turned it right side up, went back to bed, and didn't sleep a single second. Things escalated after that. My phone alarm started going off at random times. I'd hear the faint sound of it ringing even when it wasn't near me. At work, I'd find post-it notes on my monitor, blank, but freshly stuck, like someone had just peeled and pressed them. I started seeing this man on my subway rides. Always in a long brown coat, always standing just far enough away that I couldn't make out his face. He never sat, never read anything, never looked at his phone. Just stood, looking straight ahead. I never saw him board or exit. He was just there. Once, I got brave. I stood up, walked toward it. The train stopped suddenly, lights flickered, and when they came back on, he was gone. 2 nights ago, I woke up at 2:13 a.m. sharp. Not because of a noise. Just awake. Fully alert. The apartment was silent. The kind of silent that presses against your skin. I got out of bed, walked to the living room. The lamp was on. And next to it, on the coffee table, was a folded piece of paper that hadn't been there before. It just said, "You're finally noticing." I haven't been back since. I'm writing this from a hotel downtown. I took a leave of absence from work. I told my landlord I had a family emergency. Left the apartment as it was, lights on, coffee still in the pot, toothbrush in the holder. I check my phone every few minutes, even though I know no one's calling. I keep seeing the man in the brown coat. On street corners now. In reflections. Yesterday, I saw him in the glass door of a diner, and when I turned around, he wasn't there. There's a knocking sound in the walls of this room, late at night. 3 knocks. Then silence. Then 3 again. I asked the front desk if there's construction. They said no. I'm starting to think the lamp was never the beginning. Just the first thing I noticed. I don't know if I'm going insane. Or waking up. I never thought the office would get to me. It's not exactly the kind of place where your mind unravels. Gray carpet, humming fluorescence, coffee breath, quarterly goals. It's not exciting, sure, but it's predictable. Safe, even. That's what I liked about it. You could measure your life in emails sent and meetings survived. I've been working the late shift a lot lately. Not because I had to, exactly, but because it was easier than going home. My apartment felt too still. Something about the silence there had started to feel. Not empty, but expectant. Like the rooms were holding their breath. So I stayed late. There were always things to do, reports to clean up, data to check. And besides, the office was quieter at night. Peaceful. At least, it used to be. The first time it happened, it was just a sound. I was in the copy room. It's tucked away at the back of the floor, near the emergency stairwell. I heard footsteps out in the hallway. Not rushed. Not heavy. Just slow, steady, like someone taking their time. I figured it was one of the cleaning staff. I even called out, just a quick hey, still here. So they wouldn't be surprised. No answer. Just the steps. Then nothing. I went back to my desk. Tried to laugh it off. But I noticed I was checking over my shoulder more often. Watching the frosted glass of the conference room across from me, just in case a shadow passed by. You know how it is, when you think you're alone, and you realize maybe you're not, every sound stretches out too long. The weird thing is, the cleaning crew only comes in the mornings now. Budget cuts. I found that out a few days later when I asked the guy at the front desk. Said they haven't had anyone on night janitorial in months. Still, maybe someone else was working late. I'm not the only one with a full inbox. That week, I started seeing things. Just out of the corner of my eye. A reflection in the vending machine glass that didn't match what was behind me. A figure standing at the end of the corridor that vanished when I looked straight at it. I told myself it was fatigue. I hadn't been sleeping much. One night, around 11:30, I was printing out a spreadsheet and the printer jammed. Typical. I opened the tray, tried to fix the paper feed, and that's when I felt it. Breath on my neck. Not warm. Cold. Like someone exhaling inches from my skin. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. No one there. Just the endless rows of cubicles, bathed in that sterile, too bright light. I checked the thermostat, thinking maybe it was the AC. But it wasn't on. The vents were dead still. I didn't go back to the printer. I left the papers and went home. That was the last night I worked late. Or tried not to, anyway. But it followed me. At home, I started waking up at 3:33 every night. Not 3:32. Not 3:34. Always 3:33. And I'd hear it. A faint rustling, like someone moving papers just outside my bedroom door. I live alone. Once, I worked up the nerve to open the door. Just empty hallway. But my desk lamp, off when I went to bed, was on, casting this long shadow that didn't quite line up with anything in the room. Like it was from a different angle than any of the furniture could have made. I stopped trusting mirrors. I'd catch myself staring into them too long, trying to see if my reflection moved differently than I did. Sometimes, I swear it did. Just for a second. A twitch delayed, a blink out of sync. I told my sister about it. She said it sounded like stress. That maybe I needed to unplug for a bit. Get away. I agreed. Took a weekend off. Drove out to this little rental cabin in the woods. No Wi-Fi. No reception. Just trees and silence. But even there, it followed. I found a page from one of my reports on the cabin table. Same font, same formatting. But I never brought any work with me. The page didn't even make sense. Just line after line of the same phrase. I see you now. When I got home, the printer in my apartment, one I hadn't used in months, was running. Churning out pages of static. Lines of random characters, gibberish. Until the last page. Just a handful. Not printed. pressed in ash or soot. I don't sleep much anymore. I try, but the moment I start drifting, I feel it watching. Like it's just outside the frame of the world, waiting for me to look the wrong way. It's not loud. It's not violent. It's patient. It whispers in the hum of electronics, in the sigh of elevator doors closing behind me, in the dead zones of the hallway security cameras. I haven't been back to the office in weeks, but I still get calendar invites. Meetings I didn't schedule. One is always there, pinned at the top of the day. Review, 3:33 a.m. It's recurring. No way to delete it. The worst part? I think I accepted it. I used to love working nights. The office is quiet after everyone leaves, just the soft hum of the servers and the glow of monitors left on standby. Peaceful, really. I'd brew a fresh pot of coffee around 9, put on some music low enough that it doesn't echo, and settle into the rhythm of paperwork and data entry. No meetings, no coworkers popping by to circle back, just me and the keyboard. It was a temp gig. Accounts payable for a small logistics firm on the 14th floor of one of those glass box buildings downtown. I took it to pay rent while I figured out what I actually wanted to do. I told myself it was temporary, but 6 months passed before I realized I wasn't looking for anything else. That's the kind of job it was. It slipped into your life without making a sound. The weird stuff started with the copier. One night, around 11:30, I heard it start up on its own. That shuddering mechanical whirring sound. I figured someone left a job queued up, maybe forgot a file they meant to copy earlier in the day. When I got up to check, there was a single page sitting in the tray. Blank. I flipped it over, looked at the glass bed, nothing. No documents left behind, no jams, nothing in the job queue on the screen. The copier beeped once, like it was finished with a task it didn't do. I shrugged it off. But then it happened again. And again. Always one blank page. Always around the same time. I even tried unplugging it before my shift, but one night I came back from the break room and there it was, humming like I'd never touched it, another blank page sliding into the tray. I started keeping the pages. They're still in my bag, actually. I don't know why. I asked Jules, she's the daytime admin, if anything weird ever happened during the day. She blinked at me like I just asked if the chairs talk. Weird how? I laughed it off. Said something about the copier having a mind of its own. Oh. She frowned. Yeah, that thing's always acting up. Print stuff from jobs we cleared ages ago. I asked her what kind of stuff, but she just shrugged. Nothing, really. Just weird formatting. Blocks of black ink. Sometimes pages that look like code. That made my stomach tighten, though I didn't know why. A week later, I noticed the office felt colder. Not just chilly, cold. Like basement in January cold. I checked the thermostat, still set to 72. I put on my jacket and tried to focus, but my fingers stiffened on the keys. Then I heard the elevator. It dinged. But no one ever came up that late. The building locks the front doors after 9. The elevators require a fob. I was the only one with night clearance. I stood up slowly, heart starting to pick up a little. Walked out to the hallway, peeked around the corner. The elevator doors were closing. I stepped back, unsure what I was hoping to see. Or not see. When I turned around, the copier was running. Not printing, scanning. That low, slow pass of the light bar across empty glass. The lid was open, nothing on it. The light passed once, twice, 3 times. Each time, it beeped like it had saved something. I walked up to it and looked at the panel. There was no job listed. Nothing had been saved to memory. The machine was warm to the touch. I started leaving the lights on in the whole office. All of them. Even the break room and the supply closet. I couldn't stand the shadows. There's a strange thing about empty office buildings at night. Your brain fills in the silence. It invents sounds. Chairs creaking. Keyboards clicking. Doors whispering closed. I started hearing whispers. Not actual words, just the shape of speech. Soft, intermittent. Like someone talking to themselves in the next room over. Once, I thought I heard my name. One night I stayed later than usual. Pushed past 2 a.m. because I couldn't shake the feeling that if I left, something would follow me. Something I couldn't see clearly but that was watching, just out of reach. So I kept working. Eyes bleary. Music off. Silence thick. Around 2:17, the motion sensor lights in the hallway clicked off. I hadn't moved. Nothing had moved. They're supposed to stay on if there's any motion in the area. But one by one, the hallway lights began to die. Click, 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 until only the light above my cubicle was left. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then I heard footsteps. Not heavy, not rushed. Just steady. Slow. Coming from the elevator. My monitor flickered. I looked at the screen. My spreadsheet had vanished. In its place was a single line of text. You shouldn't be here. I reached out to pull the power cord and the screen went black before I touched it. I don't work there anymore. I didn't quit. I just stopped going. Jules texted me last week, asking if I was okay. Said someone's been using my keycard every night around 11. That files keep getting opened, edited, and then deleted. And the copier's been printing again. Blank pages. Always blank. I told her to talk to IT, maybe they could reset my login. She said they already did. 3 times. Sometimes I think about going back. Just to see. Just to know if what I felt was real, or just something my mind cooked up from too many sleepless nights and flickering lights. But then I dream about that hallway. The lights going out one by one. The footsteps. The cold. And I know that building is still watching. Still waiting. I've always liked living alone. Not in a sad, reclusive way, I just like the quiet. I liked that everything stayed exactly where I left it, that I didn't have to make small talk after a long day. My apartment wasn't fancy, just a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building that used to be a hotel, back in the 20s. It still had the old brass fixtures and creaky wooden floors. Charming, I told myself. Character. I moved in last fall. At first, it was perfect. I worked from home 3 days a week, so I'd get up, make coffee, sit at the little desk by the window. The view was just rooftops and wires, but it felt peaceful. Sometimes I'd even hear church bells from down the block. Then, around February, small things started to shift. Things I didn't think much of at the time. It started with the mirror in the hallway. One morning, I passed it on the way to the kitchen and noticed it was tilted slightly, like it had been bumped. I straightened it. That night, it was tilted again. Nothing dramatic. Just a few degrees off. I figured I was imagining. Or that the nail was loose. I didn't really think about it again until the following week, when I opened the hall closet and found a mug from my kitchen cabinet inside. Sitting neatly on the shelf, like it belonged there. I don't drink coffee in the hallway. I don't drink coffee near the closet. There's no reason for it to be there. That was the first time I felt it, that tight, cold feeling in my gut. Like something had happened just outside the edge of what I could explain. I started keeping track. Taking photos, making little notes in my phone. Moved the mirror to a new wall entirely. Put a sticky note on the inside of the cabinet door. Mug placed here 217. Do not move. But things still moved. The mug disappeared altogether. Never found it. Other things too, little things. A sock, a spoon, a lighter I never used. Gone. Then came the knocking. Always at night. Never loud. Just 3 soft knocks. Always from a different spot. The bathroom door, the wall behind the couch, once even the ceiling. I'd get up, check, nothing there. No one above me. No one on either side, as far as I could tell. I even asked the woman in 4B, Mrs. Ortiz, if she'd heard anything. She said no, but gave me this strange look, like she wanted to say more and didn't. One night I left my phone recording audio while I slept. When I played it back, there were gaps, like the sound just dropped out for minutes at a time. Then a voice, barely above a whisper. I played it again, slower. It said, "Do you see me yet?" I threw the phone across the room. The next day, I worked from a cafe across town. Stayed out until after dark. I thought about going to a friend's, but I couldn't explain why. What would I even say? Hey, my mirror's moving and something might be talking through my phone? I didn't want to sound insane. When I came back, everything in the apartment was exactly where I left it. Except the hallway mirror. It was back. On the original wall. Hung at that same, slight angle. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. I remember wondering, not if someone had broken in, but how long it had been watching me. Because that's what it felt like. Not a thing, but a presence. Not aggressive. Just, observing. Like a neighbor who's always at their window. The worst part? My own reflection didn't feel right anymore. I'd look at myself and think, that's not what I look like. The face was mine, but too still. The eyes lingered a fraction too long. Sometimes, I'd turn away and catch it not turning fast enough. I covered it up eventually. Hung a blanket over it. A few days passed. Quieter ones. I almost let myself relax. Then I started dreaming. Always the same place, my hallway, but endless. Stretched out for miles, lined with mirrors on both sides. Each one showed me, but not quite me. Slightly off versions. Smiling when I wasn't. Frowning when I laughed. One of them waved. I wasn't waving. I woke up with bruises on my wrist. Fingers shaped, as if someone had grabbed me tightly in my sleep. I live alone. I keep the door locked. I have no history of sleepwalking. I stopped sleeping after that. Or I tried to. You can only stay awake so long. The dreams came anyway. Not when I slept, but in the edges of things, flashes in a reflection, glimpses in the corner of the TV screen when it was off. Once, I looked out my window and saw my own face staring up from the sidewalk. Smiling. Last night, the blanket fell off the hallway mirror. Or maybe it was pulled down. I haven't put it back up. It doesn't really matter anymore. I see them everywhere now. Sometimes I wonder if I ever actually moved in here at all. Or if I've just been on the other side of the glass the whole time. Watching. Waiting for my turn. I started noticing the pattern last November. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence, just weird timing, maybe even stress. But it kept happening. I'd check the time and it would be 3:17. In the car. On my phone. On receipts, emails, microwave clocks. Always 3:17. Not every time I looked, obviously, but often enough that it felt deliberate. The weird part is, it wasn't always PM or AM, sometimes it would show up in other ways. A random invoice number at work ended in 317. The woman ahead of me at the grocery store had $31.70 on the register. My Lyft driver's plate? 317XBK. By the second week of it, I started to feel like I was being followed. Not in the traditional, someone's walking behind me kind of way. More like, watched, observed, judged. I know that sounds paranoid. But have you ever felt a room tighten around you, like the walls are leaning just slightly inward, though everything looks normal? That's what it felt like. Constantly. I live in a pretty normal apartment, nothing fancy. 4th floor, end of the hallway. Big windows, decent view of the city skyline, if you tilt your head just right. I work remotely now, tech job, mostly code reviews and bug tickets. The kind of work you can do with headphones in and your brain half off. And I like the quiet, at first. The long, uninterrupted days. But after a while, the silence started to feel fake. Not peaceful. More like expectant. I'd walk into a room and feel like I was interrupting something. Like something invisible was halfway through a sentence, and stopped talking the moment I entered. On November 13, I woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. I didn't dream. Didn't hear anything. Just snapped awake, eyes open, heart already pounding. The room was dark, except for the little blinking light from the router in the corner. I sat up slowly, straining to hear anything unusual. Nothing. Then I noticed my phone screen was on. Face down on the nightstand, lit up like I'd just gotten a notification. I picked it up. No texts. No alerts. But the time was there, glowing. 3:17 a.m. I turned it off and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I checked the hallway camera. My landlord installed motion-activated security cams on each floor after someone broke into the laundry room last summer. I had the feed bookmarked, just to have it. I wanted to see if anyone had been outside my door the night before. Nothing. No movement. Just the timestamp blinking in the corner. Except, at exactly 3:17, the footage jumped. A half second of static. Just a flicker. Then it resumed like normal. I played it back 20 times. Still glitched. Only at that exact second. A few days later, I was on a video call with a coworker. We were reviewing a ticket, something about a memory leak in the new build. I wasn't really paying attention, just tired. Then she said, "Hey, who's behind you?" I froze. "What?" She tilted her head. "I saw someone walk past your kitchen." I turned, heart thudding, but there was nothing there. "No one's here," I said. She laughed nervously. "Weird. I swear I saw someone. Like, really tall? Just for a second." I got up, checked the whole apartment. Closet. Bathroom. Nothing. But when I came back, she looked pale. "Are you okay?" I asked. She stared at me for a beat too long. Then said, "Yeah. Just. Maybe I imagined it." The call ended early. I haven't heard from her since. I haven't left the apartment in 3 days. I don't feel safe outside anymore. Every time I do, the number shows up, on buses, receipts, license plates, building addresses. Sometimes I see shadows move in reflections. Not around me. Behind me. I even tried smashing all the clocks in the apartment. Phone, microwave, wall clock, gone. Doesn't matter. The number finds me. Yesterday, I heard a knock at my door. I didn't answer. Just sat there, frozen, listening. After a minute, I crept to the peephole. No one was there. But taped to the door, in red marker, was a scrap of paper. 317, let us in. I don't remember going to sleep last night. But I woke up on the floor this morning, with dirt on my hands. There was a smell, wet earth and something sweet, rotting. I checked the mirror and there was mud on my face. Under my fingernails. The front door was locked. The window was closed. But my phone was on again. And there was a new notification. Just a clock app I never downloaded. One alarm set. 3:17 a.m. Recurring. Every night. There's no option to delete it. Only one button. Accept. There's this diner near my apartment, Dale's. One of those old chrome and neon places that look like they got stuck in 1954 and never figured out how to leave. Vinyl booths, pie under a glass dome, a jukebox that only plays dusty old songs about heartbreak and thunderstorms. It's open 24 hours, and I've started going there at night when I couldn't sleep. I don't know why, exactly. Just felt safer than being alone in my place at 2 a.m. It was usually empty that late. Maybe a trucker or two, sometimes the same old guy in a fraying flannel nursing a black coffee like it was a lifeline. The waitress, Sandy, always smiled at me like she knew I'd show up. She wore her hair in a tight ponytail and never wrote down your order, but she always got it right. One night, maybe a month ago, I noticed something strange about the clock. It was an old school wall clock, the kind with a smooth second hand that glides instead of ticking. I was sitting in my usual booth, nursing a vanilla shake and pretending to read a paperback I'd already finished, when I realized the second hand wasn't moving. It was stuck on the 12. Just still. I watched it for a solid minute. Nothing. I pointed it out to Sandy when she came by. She gave me this weird look, like I'd asked her something deeply inappropriate, then glanced up at the clock. "Looks fine to me," she said. I looked back. It was moving again. Smooth as ever. I brushed it off. Lack of sleep, maybe. Bad angle. But then it kept happening. Every time I looked directly at the clock, it would stop. As if it was waiting for me to look away. I even recorded it with my phone once, just aimed the camera at it, tried to catch it in the act. The footage showed the second hand ticking along like normal. But when I watched it live, in person, it froze. Every single time. Eventually, I stopped looking at it. Then the people started repeating. There was a woman, early 40s, green coat, hair pulled back with a red clip, who always sat in the booth behind mine. I saw her 3 nights in a row. Same coat. Same clip. Same thing on her plate, grilled cheese and a side of coleslaw. She'd cut the sandwich into neat little triangles, eat one piece, then leave the rest untouched. Never said a word to anyone. On the 4th night, she was there again. Same everything. I turned to get a better look at her, and she looked up, straight at me, like she'd been waiting. Her eyes didn't match. One was green, the other black. Not brown. Black. Like a hole. I turned away. I asked Sandy about her. Described her, even gave the booth number. Sandy blinked, slowly, like she was buffering. "No one sat there in weeks," she said. "You're thinking of someone else." That night, when I got home, I found a triangle of grilled cheese sitting on my doorstep. Cold. Neatly cut. I stopped going to the diner for a few days. Tried sleeping. Tried normal hours. But something felt off, like the world had shifted a few degrees sideways. Every time I passed a reflective surface, I swore I saw booths behind me. Stainless steel and red vinyl. Even in the grocery store mirrors, even in the windows of passing cars. One night, I caved and went back. The diner was empty. Completely empty. Even Sandy wasn't there. No music. No smell of coffee. Just stillness. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I'd come at the wrong time or if something had changed. Then I saw it. The clock. The second hand was spinning. Not ticking, not gliding, spinning, fast, like a wheel coming off a car. It made no sound, but the movement made my stomach twist. And then I noticed the booths were full. People were sitting in them, dozens of them. But not facing each other. All of them were turned toward me. Every single one. Staring. Not blinking. I didn't recognize a single face, but they all looked wrong. Not monstrous, just off. Slightly too symmetrical. Or too still. Like mannequins that forgot how to pretend to be alive. I backed out. Didn't even turn around. Just walked backward out the door, not taking my eyes off them until I was on the sidewalk again. When I turned to walk away, the neon sign flickered behind me. I looked back once. The diner was dark. Closed. As if it had never been open. That was 3 nights ago. Last night, I got a takeout bag left on my kitchen table. I live alone. Doors locked. No sign of a break-in. Inside was a grilled cheese sandwich. Cut into perfect triangles. Still warm. My clock has been stuck at 2:37 ever since. I think it started with the smell. It was faint at first. Not bad, just off. Like old plastic left out in the sun. I noticed it in the stairwell of my apartment building, 3rd floor landing. Kind of sweet, kind of chemical. I figured maybe someone spilled cleaning fluid or something. I didn't think twice about it. Not then. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, I smell it everywhere. It follows me. I live in this old brick building on the edge of town, 6 floors, narrow hallways, cracked paint, buzzing fluorescent lights. The kind of place that always feels a little damp, no matter how high you turn the heat. But it's cheap, and I'd just gotten out of a breakup, so it felt right. Temporary. Quiet. The neighbors mostly keep to themselves. Except for the woman across the hall, Mrs. Dorsey. She's in her 80s, I think. Always has that little white dog with her. The kind that looks like it's been in the dryer too long. She talks to it constantly. I used to think it was sweet. Now I'm not so sure. A week after the smell started, I was coming home late, some emergency at work, one of those days that makes your soul feel paper thin. I climbed the stairs, hit the 3rd floor, and stopped. The smell was stronger. Thicker. It coated the back of my throat. And there was something else. Scratches on the wall. Not huge, not dramatic, just faint, repeated lines. Long. Uneven. Like someone had dragged their fingers across the paint again and again, almost absently. I stared at them for a while. Something about the way they ended bothered me. They didn't taper off. They just stopped. Like whoever made them was yanked away. I asked Mrs. Dorsey if she'd noticed anything strange in the building lately. She didn't answer at first. Just looked at me, then looked down at the dog. Then she said, "It doesn't like being watched." I laughed, thinking maybe I'd misheard. What doesn't? She shook her head slowly and shuffled back into her apartment, muttering something under her breath in a language I didn't recognize. The dog looked at me before the door shut. It didn't blink. I started leaving the hall light on at night. A few nights later, I woke up at 3:41 a.m. to the sound of footsteps above me. Thing is, I live on the top floor. There is no apartment above mine. Just the roof. At first, I thought maybe it was wind, branches scraping, raccoons, whatever. But the steps were heavy. Deliberate. Slow. Like someone walking from one end of the ceiling to the other. I stayed frozen under the covers for hours, barely breathing. When I finally got up and looked outside, the street below was still. Silent. No wind. No animals. Just a dark shape on the roof, standing near the edge. I blinked, and it was gone. Things escalated after that. The smell? Stronger. It's in my clothes now. My sheets. The water. And the scratches started showing up inside my apartment. On the bathroom door. Inside the kitchen cabinet. One night I came home and all the silverware was laid out perfectly across the floor, arranged in spirals. No signs of a break-in. Nothing missing. I threw them away. Next morning, they were back in the drawer. Still wet. I tried staying at a friend's place for a couple nights. Didn't matter. The second night there, I woke up to the sound of the front door unlocking. Slowly. No one else was home. I hid in the closet, breath shallow, phone shaking in my hand. It never came in. But when I crept out in the morning, there was something written on the mirror in my friend's bathroom. "You belong here." The handwriting was mine. I don't go outside much anymore. Every time I do, something follows me back. Reflections where there shouldn't be. Static on every screen I pass. Strangers staring too long. Or worse, not looking at me at all. Like I'm already gone. And the smell. It's changed. Less plastic, more copper now. Heavy and wet. Last night, I woke up and the scratches on the wall were moving. Just barely. Just enough to see if you stared. Like they were still being written. Mrs. Dorsey died yesterday. They found her in her apartment, doors still locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. But her walls were covered in those same scratches. Hundreds of them. Layers. Like someone had been trying to claw their way out of time. The dog was gone. Her door's open now. No police tape. No cleanup crew. Just open. Every time I pass it, I swear I hear breathing inside. Heavy. Wet. Patient. Tonight, there's something scratching at my door. Not knocking. Scratching. Delicate. Measured. Like it's waiting for me to let it in. I don't think I will. But the thing is, I'm starting to want to. I started noticing the lights first. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle flicker in the hallway of my apartment building. I live on the top floor of a 5-story walk-up in the city. It's old, but not ancient. Brick exterior, creaky stairs, the occasional roach that scuttles away before you can convince yourself you saw it. Nothing remarkable. Nothing scary. The hallway lights would flicker every time I got to the 4th floor landing. Always the same 2 bulbs, like they were giving me a little welcome twitch on my way home. I figured it was bad wiring. Or maybe the super was cheap and hadn't replaced them in a while. It was annoying, but I got used to it. Then the timing started to change. One night, I came home late from work, close to midnight. As I turned the corner on the 2nd floor, the lights up ahead started to flicker. Not just the usual 2, all of them. In sequence. As if something was following me, just ahead. Or guiding me. That made me pause. I even said something out loud, a dumb what the hell? To fill the silence. No one answered. I tried to laugh it off, but the hair on my arm stood up, and my stomach got tight. Like the building had exhaled, and I'd felt the wind of it. When I reached the 5th floor, my door was slightly open. Just a crack. Enough to see the light from the kitchen spilling out. I'm careful about locking up. Obsessive, actually. I've had this fear since I was a kid that someone would come in while I was asleep. I triple check. Every night. Deadbolt. Chain. Handle. But the door was open. I stood there for a long time, just listening. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Eventually, I pushed it open with my foot. The lights were on, but everything was still. Nothing missing. Nothing out of place. I walked through the apartment like I was trying not to wake it up. On the kitchen table, there was a note. Not written by me. Not written at all. Just torn from a notebook I didn't own, with a single line typed on. You locked the door. I unlocked it. No signature. No explanation. Just that. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light on and a kitchen knife in my lap like some suburban lunatic. At some point I must have dozed off, because I woke up to the sound of something scraping softly across the floorboards in the hallway. I didn't move. Just listen. It stopped outside my door. Then nothing. In the morning, there was a second note. Don't bother with the chain tonight. I called the landlord. I begged for the locks to be changed. He said sure, but didn't sound too concerned. Old building, he kept saying. Doors don't always stay shut. Maybe it's warping from the heat. I didn't argue. I just wanted it done. New lock. New chain. Deadbolt so stiff I had to lean my whole weight into it. That night, the lights didn't flicker. They buzzed. A low, electric hum, like the bulbs were straining to stay alive. I felt it in my jaw. In my teeth. When I reached the 5th floor, the hallway light popped. Literally burst, glass and all. The others kept coming. My door was shut this time. But on the ground, just under the frame, was a 3rd note, slid halfway into the apartment like an invitation. You shouldn't pretend you're alone. I didn't go in. I turned around, walked right back downstairs, and booked a hotel. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? Someone's leaving notes in my apartment, but not stealing anything. Oh, and also the lights might be trying to communicate with me. Yeah. Sure. I went back 2 days later with a friend. Daylight made it feel silly, like it had all been some stress-induced dream. Nothing was missing. No new notes. My friend laughed it off. Said it was probably a neighbor messing with me. Said I had an overactive imagination. That night, I was alone again. I left the hallway lights off on purpose. Didn't want to know. Inside the apartment, everything looked fine. Too fine. Like a stage set waiting for the show to start. I tried to go about my night, made dinner, put on a movie, but everything felt 2 seconds behind. Like I wasn't quite synced with the room I was in. I fell asleep on the couch again. And I woke up to breathing. Not mine. Not human. It was slow, and shallow, and full of static. Like a television trying to exhale. I didn't open my eyes at first. I just listened. It was coming from above me. Directly above. I live on the top floor. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw something on the ceiling. Not a person. Not an animal. Just a shape. Faint. Almost smoke. Almost shadow. Watching me. Hanging upside down like it didn't understand gravity. It didn't move. It just breathed. Then it whispered. You can't lock me out. You let me in the first time. I must have passed out or fallen asleep or blacked out. I don't know. When I came to, it was morning. The ceiling was clean. Empty. But there was a final note, taped to the inside of my front door. I live here too. I still live here. Where else would I go? It's the little things that get you first. A missed alarm. A misplaced wallet. You tell yourself you're just tired, distracted, stressed. That it's nothing. That it happens to everyone. That's what I told myself, anyway. The first time I noticed something was off was the Wednesday after I moved into my new apartment. Nothing dramatic. Just, my toothbrush was wet. I hadn't used it yet. I remember staring at it for way too long, trying to logic it out. Maybe the faucet had splashed. Maybe I'd used it and just forgot, though that didn't sit right. My mouth didn't taste like toothpaste. I hadn't even had coffee yet. Still, I moved on. You have too, or else you start spiraling. That's what I kept telling myself. The apartment's nice. Too nice, honestly, for what I'm paying. Second floor, clean, big windows, old wood floors that creak but feel solid. There's even a little built-in bookshelf in the hallway, which I loved instantly. Felt like something out of an old movie. The building's quiet, too. The only other person I ever see is this guy from the unit across the hall. Tall, pale, doesn't say much. I nodded at him once when I was bringing in groceries and he just kinda looked through me. Not rude, just distant. Like he was looking past me, not at me. Still, I didn't get a bad vibe from him. Just off. The second thing was the books. I came home from work late one night and found 3 of my books on the hallway shelf flipped upside down. Not just out of place, reversed. Spines facing in, titles hidden. I live alone. No one else has a key. I flipped them back without thinking. Then paused. Because they weren't random books. They were the ones about dreams. Sleep, lucid states, night terrors. Stuff I'd picked up during college when I couldn't stop having nightmares. I didn't even remember putting them there. That night, I dreamed someone was standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't see them, just their silhouette in the dark. But I knew, they were looking at me. Head tilted slightly, like they were curious. Or confused. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Just watched as the figure leaned closer. And then I woke up. Except, I wasn't in my bed. I was standing in the hallway, right in front of the bookshelf. One of the books was on the floor. Still open. I started setting up my phone to record overnight. I didn't really expect to catch anything. I figured maybe I was sleepwalking, or dreaming while awake, or something half logical that would make me feel less like I was cracking open. But the first night, around 2:53 a.m., I caught something. The video is mostly dark. A dim, grainy view of my bed. I'm still. And then, slowly, my bedroom door creaks open. There's no breeze. No windows open. No draft. It just opens. About 3 inches. Nothing enters. Nothing moves. But the door stays open until morning. I checked it again and again. I lock it every night. I locked it that night. I deleted the video. Then emptied the trash folder. I don't know why. I just couldn't stand the idea of it sitting there. A week later, I came home to find a mirror in my bathroom covered in condensation. Like someone had just taken a long, hot shower. I hadn't been home all day. There was a single word written in the fog, right in the center. Stay. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the living room with every light on, heart racing, trying to stay awake. I kept the TV on, low volume. Something mindless. I didn't want silence. Around 3 a.m., the lights flickered. Just once. And then I heard footsteps above me. But I'm on the top floor. I turned the TV off. The footsteps kept going. Pacing. Slow. Measured. And then the bookshelf creaked. Not like it was settling. Not like the wood was warping. Like someone was removing something. I finally broke down and talked to the guy across the hall. I caught him just as he was unlocking his door. I didn't even plan what to say, I just asked, "Hey, have you noticed anything weird? Like, in the building?" He didn't look at me right away. Then he said, "You're in 2C, right?" I nodded. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then stopped. "Just don't move anything," he said quietly. "They don't like that." I asked who he meant. He went inside and shut the door. Last night, I woke up again. This time, I was in the living room, sitting in the chair by the bookshelf. All the books were rearranged. Alphabetical, by title. Not how I keep them. And there was something else on the shelf now. Something I know wasn't there before. A photo. Black and white. Old. Curled edges. It showed the hallway. My hallway. Except the walls looked cleaner. The floor shinier. And there were 3 people standing in front of the bookshelf. Their faces were blurred. Smudged. Like the photo had been scratched. But one of them was wearing my shirt. I've tried throwing the photo away. Burning it. Flushing it. It always comes back. Sometimes I find it under my pillow. Sometimes it's tucked between the pages of a book I haven't touched in years. Sometimes I wake up holding it. I don't know what it wants from me. But I know I can't leave. I've tried. I packed a bag, called a friend, even made it down to the sidewalk. And then I blinked, and I was back inside. In the chair. By the bookshelf. Staring at the photo. The same 3 people. Only now, all their faces are blank. I used to love thunderstorms. The sound of rain on windows, the distant rumble of thunder, it made everything feel clean, like the world was being reset. Growing up, I'd sit on the porch during storms with a blanket and just watch the lightning. There was something comforting about it. That changed a few weeks ago. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary in every way. I work IT for a hospital, mostly desk work, troubleshooting the same 5 problems over and over. I left late, around 8:30. The sky had gone that weird, coppery color it gets before a summer storm. Air thick and electric. By the time I was on the highway, the rain had started. Then the thunder. Then the lightning, closer than I'd ever seen it, like it was chasing the car. And that's when I saw her. There was a woman standing on the shoulder of the road. No umbrella, no raincoat, just a pale dress plastered to her body by the downpour. She was barefoot. Her hair was slicked back like she'd been standing there a long time. She didn't try to flag me down, just stood there, staring at the trees on the other side of the road. I slowed. Something about her made my heart thud hard in my chest. But I didn't stop. I told myself someone else would call it in. I kept driving. I checked the rearview mirror, just once. She was gone. Not walking away. Not hidden by the rain. Just gone. I got home soaked. Threw my clothes in the hamper, started making a sandwich. My phone buzzed. It was a weather alert, severe thunderstorm warning. Stay indoors. I glanced at the TV. Static. I hadn't turned it on. I walked over to turn it off and it clicked on before I could touch it. No channel. Just snow. I stood there, waiting, thinking maybe the storm had knocked out reception. Then the static cleared. Just for a second. And I saw the woman. Not footage. Not an old broadcast. She was standing in my living room. Pale dress, dripping wet, head tilted toward the camera like she knew it was there. Like she was looking through the screen, straight at me. Then it was static again. I turned the TV off and unplugged it. The plug was warm in my hand. That night, the storm got worse. Wind rattled the windows. Rain slammed the roof. I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing things, small thumps, like footsteps in the attic. A whisper I couldn't understand, carried by the wind. At 3:11 a.m., I heard the front door creak open. I live alone. I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed. Moved slowly, barefoot on the hallway floor, every step loud in my ears. I turned the corner into the living room and stopped. The door was shut, dead bolted. But the floor was wet. Just a trail of water leading from the front door to the couch. A small puddle on the rug. No footprints. Just moisture, like someone had passed through. I stood there until the sun came up, bat in hand, eyes burning. The next day at work, I asked around. I told myself I was just curious, asked if anyone else had seen a woman walking during the storm the night before. A couple people shook their heads. One guy, Mark, said, "What, like the wet lady?" I asked him what he meant. He shrugged, suddenly uncomfortable. Just something my mom used to talk about. She said during really bad storms, there's this woman who shows up on the side of the road. White dress. So, if you stop, she vanishes. If you don't, she follows you. I laughed it off in front of him. But something cold settled under my skin and didn't leave. That night, I unplugged every screen in my house. TV, laptop, monitor, even my phone. I left it all in the kitchen and tried to sleep. It didn't help. Around midnight, the storm started again. Harder this time. And just like before, the whispering came. I got out of bed and found the hallway light on. The puddles started again. But they weren't in the living room this time. They were leading down the hallway. To my bedroom. I followed them, even though my whole body screamed not to. I stopped at the threshold. And saw her. Standing at the foot of my bed. Not dripping anymore. Just wet. Silent. Her head tilted like she was trying to hear something buried under the floorboards. When she turned to look at me, her eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were hollow. Like the storm itself was staring back. I blinked, and she was gone. But the next day, I found footprints. Damp, bare feet on the wood floor. They led from the bed to the kitchen, and stopped in front of the TV. Which was on. Playing only static. I haven't turned it off. Because now, every night, she's there. In the screen. Standing a little closer than before. And the storms keep coming. Even when the forecast says clear. I think she's waiting for something. Or maybe I brought her with me. I've never been the kind of person to worry about things like paranoia or gut feelings. I'm practical, grounded, the kind of person who solves problems by making lists and setting reminders. But lately something's been off. It started about 2 weeks ago, when I noticed my reflection in the bathroom mirror wasn't quite right. Not in a spooky, monster in the mirror way. More like a subtle delay, like my reflection was a fraction of a second behind me. I'd turn my head, and the reflection would hesitate before following. Blink my eyes, and sometimes it felt like the eyes in the mirror stayed closed a split second longer. I thought maybe I was overtired. Or stressed. I had a big project at work, and my nights were short. So I ignored it. I live alone in a small apartment on the 5th floor of an old building downtown. It's nothing fancy, but I like it. The big windows look out over a narrow street lined with cafes and bookstores. During the day, the light floods in and fills the room with warmth. But at night, the streetlights cast long shadows that stretch like fingers across the walls. That night, after the mirror thing, I decided to take a shower and wash off the weird feeling clinging to me. When I stepped out, the bathroom door was closed. I don't know how I hadn't shut it, but it was. I opened it. No one was there. The hairdryer, which I'd left unplugged, was running on the counter. The next day, I found that several of my personal items were moved. Nothing big, my keys were on the windowsill instead of the kitchen counter. A book I'd left open on the couch was now closed and upside down. I live alone. I started locking every door and window, double checking before bed. But the feeling didn't go away. It got worse. One evening, I was on a video call with my sister, trying to sound normal despite the knot tightening in my chest. Suddenly, the call froze. The screen pixelated and warped. And in the glitching image behind my sister, I saw a figure. Tall. Shadowy. Standing just over her shoulder. I blinked. The glitch cleared. She was alone. I asked if anyone was there. She said no. But I swear I saw her. That night, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Heavy. Close. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and saw my bedroom door was open just a crack. There was no one there. I closed the door. The breathing stopped. Days passed, and the boundary between what I saw and what I imagined blurred. The mirror sometimes showed me scenes I didn't recognize, streets I'd never been to, faces I didn't know staring back. My reflection began smiling when I wasn't. I stopped looking. Last night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the apartment, lights on, every noise amplified. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. One word. Stay. No explanation. No reply when I texted back. I'm not sure if it's a warning or a threat. This morning, I found my reflection gone. Not just absent from the mirror, but missing from every reflective surface. The windows, the screen of my phone, even the spoon on the kitchen table. I looked down at my hands. Still there. But something about me feels hollow. I don't know what's happening, or how much longer I have before I disappear completely. I've never really trusted the subway. Not because of the crowds or the noise or the late night graffiti. It's something else, something I couldn't quite put my finger on until recently. I take the train every day, same route, same car whenever I can. There's this one spot near the back where the seats face each other, and I always sit there. I like being able to see everyone coming and going. Makes me feel in control. Last week, on my way home, I noticed something odd. The train was nearly empty, which was unusual for rush hour. I sat down and glanced at the ceiling lights. One of them flickered, not a quick blink, but a slow, deliberate pulse, like a heartbeat. I shook my head and looked away, telling myself I was tired. But then I saw it. A man standing near the doors. He wasn't moving, just staring straight ahead, but his eyes were locked on me. His face was pale, almost translucent, like he was half lit by the cold fluorescent light. I didn't recognize him, but something about him made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore him. Put my headphones on, turned up the volume. When I glanced again, he was gone. I told myself he'd gotten off at the last stop. The next day, same thing. Different train, same seat. The lights flickered again. Same slow pulse. I looked up, and there he was. Same pale face, same dead stare. This time, he was closer. Maybe 10 feet away. I blinked. He vanished. I started to feel paranoid. Like the train wasn't just a way to get home, it was watching me. A few days later, I texted a coworker to meet me at the station. When I showed her where I sit, she laughed and said, "You know, that spot's got a creepy history." Turns out, a year ago, a man was found dead on that very car. No one saw how it happened. No explanation. The train was taken out of service for a while, then brought back. But some people say his spirit still rides that route, waiting. I thought it was nonsense. Until last night. The train was packed, late and noisy. I was standing near the back doors, holding onto a pole, when the lights started pulsing again. Everyone else seemed oblivious. And then I saw it. Not just one, but dozens of pale faces pressed against the windows, staring in from the tunnels. Their eyes black holes, mouths moving in silence. The train screeched as it entered the next station, and they vanished. I staggered out, heart hammering. Today, I'm avoiding the subway. But sometimes, when the lights flicker just right, I swear I hear whispers behind me. And I don't know if they want me to stay, or if they want me to leave forever. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, or at least, they think they do. It's the kind of place where things stay the same for decades, and new feels like a disturbance, like a rock thrown into still water. I've always liked that about it. Safe, quiet, predictable. Until the mail started coming wrong. At first, it was just a few letters that weren't addressed to me but ended up in my mailbox. Bills for someone named E. Monroe, flyers for a local bakery I'd never heard of, postcards from faraway places. I figured the mail carrier was just screwing up. So I set them aside and planned to return them. Then I noticed the handwriting on the envelopes. It was my handwriting. Not exactly, but close enough to make me stop. The loop of the R was different, a little sharper, the cross on the T a bit longer. But the spacing, the slant, the style was unmistakable. I kept the envelopes. One evening, I found a letter slipped under my door. No envelope, just folded paper. Inside was a note, written in the same handwriting. "I see you watching. I'm not sure what it means. Watching what? Watching me? I haven't told anyone. I feel like if I do, they'll think I'm crazy. It's probably some prank. Some kid messing around. But then the notes kept coming. They escalated. You're not alone. We're closer than you think. Look behind you. Every time, the paper was old and worn, as if it had been folded and unfolded countless times. Last week, I started noticing shadows. Not the ones from trees or streetlights. These were darker, thicker, and moved just out of the corner of my eye. At the diner, I saw one stretch along the wall behind the waitress, then vanish. On my way home, a shadow fell across the sidewalk, but there was no one there. I told myself it was my imagination. Last night, I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my window. I live on the second floor. I pulled back the curtain. Nothing. But the dirt on the window pane was smeared, like someone had pressed their hand against the glass. My heart raced. I backed away. Then I heard whispering. Soft, almost inaudible, coming from the hallway. I froze. The whisper turned into words. My name. I don't know what to do. I can't tell if someone is watching me, or if I'm just unraveling. I don't know if the handwriting is mine or someone else's. And I'm terrified to look behind me. I live alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just the basics, really. I like it that way. Quiet, predictable, easy to keep track of. But over the last couple weeks, that started to change. It began with my reflection. I'm not talking about the usual mirror stuff. You know, the way you catch yourself making weird faces or checking if you have spinach in your teeth. No. This was different. One morning, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed my reflection lagging behind me. Like a half-second delay. I blinked. It stopped. I shrugged it off as tiredness or a trick of the light. Then it happened again. And again. Sometimes, my reflection wouldn't copy me at all. It'd smile when I was frowning. It'd look away when I was staring straight ahead. Once, it blinked slowly while my eyes stayed wide open. I tried testing it. I waved my hand quickly. My reflection hesitated, then moved sluggishly. I raised an eyebrow, and it furrowed its. I stopped looking in mirrors for days. But the feeling stayed, like something was watching me from just behind the glass. Then last night, I came home late. It was raining. I locked the door, dropped my keys on the table, and went straight to the bathroom to wash up. The mirror was fogged from the shower. I wiped it clear with the sleeve of my shirt. That's when I saw it. Not my reflection, but a face, pressed right against the other side of the glass. Pale, wet, eyes too wide and dark. It smiled. I slammed the bathroom door shut and didn't sleep a wink. This morning, I checked the mirror again. Nothing. I thought maybe I was losing it. But then I noticed the faint outline of handprints on the outside of the glass. They're still there. And every time I pass a mirror, I catch a glimpse of that smile, waiting for me. I don't know what it wants. But I'm starting to think it's patient enough to wait as long as it needs. I started noticing the little things disappearing first. Keys, usually left on the kitchen table, would be gone. Not lost, just gone. Not in any drawer or pocket either. My favorite mug would be missing, only to show up later filled with cold water. Sometimes I'd find my shoes neatly lined up by the door, but other times one would be missing entirely, replaced by something else, a cracked egg, a single glove. I live alone. There's no one else. At first, I told myself it was forgetfulness. Stress. The usual excuses. But the pattern grew too consistent to ignore. One evening, after work, I came home to find the hallway light flickering. The bulb had just been replaced a week ago. The flicker felt rhythmic, almost deliberate. I stepped inside and the air was thick, like the room was holding its breath. The clock on the wall ticked unevenly, sometimes slowing, sometimes speeding up. I stood still, trying to shake the feeling, and that's when I heard it. Soft footsteps coming from the bedroom. I don't have a pet. I called out. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. I checked the room. Empty. The next morning, I found a note taped to my bathroom mirror. Written in my handwriting, but I don't remember writing it. You're not alone. I peeled it off, heart pounding. Later that day, I caught movement from the corner of my eye, a shadow slipping just behind the doorframe. I turned sharply. Nothing. I started sleeping with the lights on. But last night, They all went out. Complete blackout. I heard breathing close to my ear. Not mine. I couldn't move. This morning, I woke up in the living room. The couch was pulled away from the wall. And the note was back. Only this time, it said, "Stay. I don't know if I can." I work the night shift at a small tech support call center downtown. The office is on the 7th floor of an aging building with flickering fluorescent lights and one of those ancient, rattly elevators that feels like it might give out any second. The kind of place you forget about during the day but feel its weight after midnight. I usually keep to myself, headphones in, letting the monotony of troubleshooting printers and frozen screens lull me into autopilot. But lately, something's been off. It started 2 weeks ago, on a slow Wednesday. Around 2 a.m., when the office is mostly empty except for me and the cleaning crew, I heard a faint tapping sound. At first, I thought it was the janitor moving his car, but then the sound started coming from the ventilation ducts above my desk, sharp, irregular taps, like someone was tapping to get my attention. I glanced up, but there was nothing but the dull hum of the AC. I told myself it was nothing. Probably just the building settling. The next night, it happened again. But this time, the taps formed a rhythm. 3 quick taps, pause, 2 slow taps, pause, then 1 sharp tap. I frowned and took out my earbuds. "Hello?" I whispered, half joking. "Who's there?" No answer. Only silence and the low buzz of the machines. But as I leaned back, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, a shadow slipping past the frosted glass conference room door down the hall. I blinked, and it was gone. I shrugged it off, but my skin stayed prickly. The nights after that, the tapping grew louder and more insistent. Sometimes it moved from the vents to the pipes near the ceiling. Sometimes it was right behind me, even though I knew no one else was there. I started bringing a flashlight, keeping my phone close. I asked the cleaning crew if anyone else had noticed anything strange. They just smiled awkwardly and changed the subject. Last night was the worst. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the tap started again, right above my head, like someone was pounding on the metal air duct. I stood up, heart racing, and looked around the empty office. Then the lights flickered violently, and the power cut out. The emergency lights kicked in, casting long, sharp shadows. I grabbed my phone to call security, but the screen cracked as soon as I unlocked it. The tapping stopped. Then I heard a voice. Low, raspy, barely a whisper. "Leave." I bolted out of my chair, sprinted to the stairwell, and didn't stop running until I was outside, gulping cold air. This morning, the building manager said no one else had reported anything. I'm supposed to be back tonight. But I don't know if I'm going to go. Because somewhere in those walls, something doesn't want me here. And I'm starting to think it never will. I don't remember exactly when it started, that quiet feeling, like the walls were leaning in just a little closer every day. I thought it was just the stress from work piling up, or maybe too many late nights alone in this tiny apartment on the edge of town. But then the keys disappeared. Not all at once. One day, I'd leave them on the kitchen counter, and by the time I came back from the bathroom, they'd be gone. I'd search everywhere, even under the couch cushions, only to find them tucked in the bathroom sink. The sink. How they got there, I have no idea. I told myself I must be misplacing things, or that I was just tired. But the feeling wouldn't leave, the one that whispered something wasn't right. A week after the keys started vanishing, I began hearing footsteps. Not outside. Inside. At night, when the city was silent except for distant sirens and the hum of streetlights. They'd start soft, like someone pacing slowly from the bedroom to the living room, then stop. But when I'd check, I was alone. The creaks and thumps felt too measured to be just old building noises. One night, I woke up to the sound of a door closing. My apartment has 2 doors, the front door and the bedroom door. Both were closed when I fell asleep. I reached for my phone to check the time. 3:17 a.m. I lay still, listening. Nothing. Then I noticed the bedroom door was slightly ajar. I swear I closed it. The next day, I found a small note taped inside my closet door. No handwriting I recognized. Just a single word, written in shaky letters. Leave. I peeled it off quickly, my hands shaking. I wanted to tell someone, my sister, maybe, but who would believe me? I'm not the type to imagine things. Since then, the air feels heavy. The shadows seem to flicker just a little too long. And sometimes, when I'm staring at my reflection, I swear it doesn't quite match me. I don't know who, or what, is here. But I'm starting to think it's not going anywhere. The first time I noticed it, I thought I was imagining things. I was sitting at my kitchen table, late morning, drinking my coffee and scrolling through emails. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you hear every little creak and hum. I glanced up at the hallway mirror, one of those narrow, full-length ones near the entrance, and caught movement out of the corner of my eye. But when I looked directly, nothing was there. Just my reflection. I shook my head and went back to my inbox. Later that day, I found the same thing happening again. Shadows flickering just beyond the edges of the mirror, shapes that disappeared when I turned to look. It wasn't the light, the sun was steady through the window. That night, I woke up to a scraping noise. Like nails dragging slowly across wood. It was coming from the hallway. I stayed frozen in bed, heart hammering, listening. The scraping stopped. I told myself it was the old floorboard settling. But the next morning, the mirror was cracked. Not shattered, just a single, thin fracture running from top to bottom. I didn't do that. I don't remember it happening. Over the next few days, the crack spread, like spider webs. I tried cleaning it, covering it up, even thinking about replacing it. But every time I looked, the cracks seemed to grow. And sometimes, I swear, the reflection doesn't quite match what's behind it. One night, I was brushing my teeth and saw her, just standing there in the mirror's depth. A woman, pale and still, staring back with eyes too wide, too dark. I spun around. Empty hallway. But when I looked back at the mirror, she was closer. Closer still. And then she smiled. I don't know what she wants. But I'm scared the cracks aren't just in the glass. They're in me. There's this tiny coffee shop a few blocks from my apartment, quiet, cozy, the kind of place where the barista knows your order before you say a word. I started going there every morning because my job's only a 15-minute walk away, and honestly, it was the one constant in a life that felt like it was slowly unraveling. It began with small things. I'd sit at my usual corner table, typing away on my laptop, and every so often, I'd catch a flicker out of the corner of my eye, someone sitting across from me, but when I turned, the seat was empty. I told myself I was just tired. Maybe a leftover trick from stress or lack of sleep. But then the notes started appearing. At first, they were just scraps of paper tucked under my cup or slipped between the pages of a newspaper they left out. Messages like "you're being watched" or "don't trust the quiet." The handwriting wasn't mine, but it wasn't printed either, uneven, hurried. I asked the barista if she knew anything. She just smiled, said, "Maybe the coffee's messing with you." One afternoon, I left my laptop at the cafe by accident. When I came back, the screen was on, but instead of my work files, there was a single document open titled "Look Outside." I glanced up, and through the window, I saw a figure standing across the street, just watching. No face, just a shape, too tall, too still. When I blinked, it was gone. That night, I started hearing scratching at my apartment window. Soft, slow, like fingernails tracing the glass. I told myself it was a branch, or a cat, but the sound didn't stop for hours. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I found my front door unlocked. I'm meticulous about locking it, so that was impossible. Inside, the lights were all on, my books rearranged in strange patterns, and the word "soon" carved lightly into the wooden floor near the door. I don't know what soon means. I don't know who is watching. And I don't know how long I'll feel safe in this town where the quiet is getting louder. It started with the mail. Every morning, I'd find a single envelope slipped under my apartment door. No stamp, no return address. Just my name, neatly typed on the front. At first, I thought it was a prank. Maybe one of the neighbors playing games, or a wrong delivery. I didn't open them. But the next morning, there was another envelope. This one was heavier. I peeked inside. A single, small photograph. It was of my living room. Taken from outside my window. I froze. I looked around, but the hallway was empty. No one in sight. I told myself it was a coincidence, someone passing by. But the photos kept coming. Every day, a new picture. The angle changed, sometimes the kitchen, sometimes my bedroom door. Last week, I found one tucked under my door with the flash still warm. It showed me, sitting on my couch. Only, I hadn't been home when the photo was taken. I stopped checking the mail. But the envelopes didn't stop. Yesterday, I found one in my mailbox with no photo inside. Just a note. It said, "You're not as alone as you think." Tonight, I'm keeping the curtains closed. But I keep feeling eyes on me. And I'm pretty sure someone's watching from just outside my window. I always thought the rustling at night was just the old pipes settling, or maybe the wind sneaking through a crack in the window. My apartment's on the 3rd floor, nothing fancy, but cheap and close to work. I like the quiet, the routine, the fact that nothing ever really happened here. But then, a few nights ago, I woke up to the sound of tapping. Soft, deliberate, like fingers drumming on wood. It wasn't the window, or the walls. It was coming from inside the apartment. From the bedroom closet. I froze, heart pounding so loud I was sure whoever, or whatever, it was could hear. I told myself to be rational. Maybe a rodent. A branch tapping outside. I grabbed my phone, switched on the flashlight, and opened the closet door. Nothing. Just clothes hanging, shoes on the floor. I shut it quickly and locked the door behind me. That same night, I found my jacket, usually tossed on a chair, folded neatly at the foot of the bed. I didn't fold it. In the morning, my keys were missing. Not lost, they just vanished. Then reappeared inside the microwave. I don't own a microwave. I've started noticing little things out of place all the time. A book that wasn't on the shelf before. A lamp that switched on, even though I'm sure I turned it off. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I swear I see someone standing just behind me. But when I turn around, there's no one. Last night, the tapping came back. Louder. Closer. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The closet door was open. And inside, a single word was scrawled on the wall in what looked like dirt or ash. Wait. I don't know what I'm waiting for. But I'm scared I'll find out soon. I moved into this old house on the outskirts of town about a month ago. It's the kind of place people drive by quickly, eyes a little too wide, as if sensing something but not wanting to say it out loud. I like that. I like that no one was around. The house creaks. It has too. It's old wood, settling and sighing with every gust of wind. I thought I could handle that. But then the footsteps started. At first, it was soft, barely audible, like someone pacing upstairs late at night. I live alone. I don't have guests. I don't have pets. One night, I stayed up to listen. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming down the hall. I called out. Hello? Silence. I got up and checked every room. Empty. The next morning, I found the front door unlocked. I'm sure I locked it. I told myself I was paranoid. The house is old. Doors don't always latch right. But then the footsteps grew louder. Not just upstairs. Downstairs too. Behind me when I'm in the kitchen, following me when I'm in the bathroom. I tried recording the sounds. Late at night, I'd set my phone down and let it capture. Playback was worse than the silence. Breathing. Whispering. Footsteps that never match mine. Last night, the power went out for 15 minutes. In the dark, I felt a presence right beside me. A cold breath on my neck. I spun around. Nothing. But the hallway light flickered back on. And in the mirror at the end of the hall, I saw a figure standing behind me. I don't know who, or what, it is. But I'm starting to think the house isn't empty. And maybe it never was. I don't know when the laughter started. It's never loud. Never full or joyful. Just quiet, low, like it's coming from somewhere just out of sight. At first, I thought it was the neighbors, kids maybe, or someone passing by late at night. But then I realized, I live alone. On the top floor. No one should be above me. It began on a Tuesday. I was working late, trying to finish a report in the dim glow of my desk lamp. The room was silent except for the hum of my computer and the occasional car passing outside. Then, from the hallway, I heard it, a soft, breathy chuckle. I froze. Told myself it was nothing. I called out, hello? Silence. When I checked, the hallway was empty. That night, I locked all the doors. I even jammed a chair under the handle of the bedroom door. But the laughter came again. Closer this time. Like it was right outside my bedroom. I held my breath. The next morning, I found a small doll sitting on my pillow. Not mine. Never seen it before. It had a cracked porcelain face, one I chipped away. Written on its back, in red ink, were the words, "Don't laugh." I tried to get rid of it. Threw it in the trash. Left it on the doorstep. Each time, it was back the next day. Sitting on my pillow. Waiting. Last night, I heard the laughter right beside me. I dared not look. But I feel it, something cold. Watching. Smiling. Waiting. And I don't know how much longer I can pretend it's just in my head. The first time I noticed the missing time, I thought I'd just been tired. You know, the kind of tired where your mind blanks out for a few minutes without you realizing. I was at work, sitting in the break room, scrolling through my phone. I looked up and realized I'd been staring at the wall for, no joke, 20 minutes. The clock said 2:15, but it felt like only a few seconds had passed. I shrugged it off. Maybe I spaced out. But then it happened again. Only this time, I was driving home. I remember turning off the highway exit, and then suddenly, I was pulling into my driveway, with no memory of the last 5 minutes. That freaked me out. I started keeping notes. Times when I lost track of what was happening. Last night, I checked my phone's location history. There was a 2-hour gap between 10 p.m. and midnight, during which my phone pinged a spot 5 miles from home. I live alone. I don't recognize the place. The creepiest part? When I called the number saved in my phone under Mom, someone else answered. A woman, whispering. I don't know who you are, she said, but you need to stop. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I'm losing my mind, or if something else is taking control when I'm not looking. And I'm terrified of what I might find if I follow those missing minutes. I never believed in the kind of things you read about in horror stories, the shadows that move when no one's there, the whispers just beyond hearing. I'm a logical person. Science, facts, proof, that's what I trust. But lately, I'm not so sure. It started with the fridge. Not the hum or the light flickering when I opened it, but the things inside changing. I'd put groceries away, then the next morning, something was missing. Not eaten, not spilled, just gone. A carton of eggs disappeared. A jar of pickles vanished. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I forgot I ate something. But the pattern grew. One night, I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen. The fridge door was wide open. I closed it. When I turned around, the kitchen was different. The table was pushed against the wall. A chair was upside down. I rubbed my eyes, convinced I was dreaming. But the mess stayed. I started locking the fridge. That night, I heard whispering. Soft, unintelligible. Coming from inside the fridge. I opened it. Nothing. Just the cold air. The next morning, the door was covered in frost, except for a single message traced in the ice. Watch. I don't know what I'm supposed to watch. Or who's watching me. But every night, the fridge door is open again. I've been waking up at exactly 4:07 a.m. every night for the past week. It's always the same. My eyes snap open. The room is pitch dark, but there's this faint buzzing sound, like electricity, but low and distant. At first, I thought it was my phone vibrating or some appliance acting up, but I checked. Nothing. Sometimes I feel like I'm not alone. Like someone's just standing in the corner, watching me. Last night, I finally had the courage to sit up and turn on the lamp. The buzzing stopped. But then I noticed the window. It wasn't shut all the way. There was a thin, wet trail on the sill, like someone had run their fingers along it. I live on the 3rd floor. No one should be able to reach that window from outside. I shut it tight and locked it. But now, every night when I wake up at 4:07, I swear I hear breathing. And it's coming from right beside my bed. I don't know how long I've been living with this feeling, like something's just off in my own home. Not the usual creepy house at night kind of off, but something subtle. More insidious. It started with little things disappearing. My keys, my glasses, a book I'd left on the coffee table. At first, I thought I was just misplacing stuff. I have a cluttered apartment. It's easy to lose things. But then I started finding them in places I'd never put them. Like the bathroom sink. Or inside the fridge. Yesterday, I found my phone in the oven. I don't know how it got there. I tried setting up a camera to catch what was happening, but every time I checked the footage, it was just static. No movement, no shadows. Nothing. But I keep hearing the whispering. Not loud, just faint murmurs, like someone speaking right behind me when I'm alone. Last night, I was lying in bed, trying to ignore it, when I felt a cold breath on my neck. I turned around fast, but there was no one there. Just the empty room. I'm starting to wonder if the thing messing with me is real, or if it's just me unraveling. Either way, I'm not sure which scares me more. It started with the noises from the attic. I live in an old house on the outskirts of town. It's charming in the daylight, but at night, the creaks and groans feel different, like the house is breathing, alive in ways I don't understand. The first time I heard it was a soft tapping, like someone lightly knocking. I told myself it was just the wind. But then the knocking got louder, more rhythmic. One night, I climbed up to the attic with a flashlight. The space was empty except for old furniture covered in sheets. But when I shone the light on one corner, I saw scratches on the wooden floor, fresh scratches. I swear they weren't there before. After that, things started moving. Books falling off shelves. Doors left open. My cat refused to go near the stairs. Last night, I woke to the sound of heavy breathing above me. I held my breath, waited. Then the attic door creaked open slowly. I didn't move. The door shut. And now, I don't know if I'm alone in this house anymore. I've started to notice the smell. It's faint at first, like damp earth after rain, but something about it feels wrong. Like the scent of something decaying just beyond the edge of my senses. I live alone in a small apartment on the 4th floor, and the windows have been closed tight for days. Still, the smell creeps in, stubborn and low. It started last weekend. I was sitting on the couch when I caught it, the scent drifting from the hallway, just outside my door. I opened it. Nothing. No trash, no food left out. The neighbors aren't home. I thought maybe it was me. But then, I found something. A small patch of blackened, moldy spots on the wall near the heater. I cleaned it, sprayed it with bleach, but the spots came back the next day. And the smell got stronger. Last night, I woke up coughing, the smell thick in the room. When I switched on the light, I saw the wall. It was crawling. Tiny black veins spreading out like a web. And in the center, a faint outline of a face, eyes closed, mouth open in a silent scream. I tried scrubbing, repainting, but it keeps coming back. I don't know if it's the building falling apart, or if something else is growing inside these walls. Either way, I'm starting to think the smell isn't going away. And neither is the face. It was the kind of town where everyone leaves their doors unlocked. Small, sleepy, with more trees than people. I like the quiet. I like knowing my neighbors by name, waving as I walk past. Until the mail stopped coming. Not all at once, just little things. Bills, packages, letters from my mom. At first, I thought it was just a delay. The postal service messing up. But days turned into a week. I went to the mailbox. Empty. I asked my neighbor if they'd gotten anything for me. They shook their head. Then the power went out. Not the usual storm blackout. This was just my house. I checked the fuse box. Nothing wrong. Candles lit. I wandered the dark rooms. That's when I saw it. On the wall, faint and wet looking, was a handprint. Not mine. I wiped it off. It came back the next night. I started hearing footsteps in the attic. Slow, pacing. I don't have an attic. Last night, the front door was wide open. I swear I locked it. I don't know if someone's inside or if the town I thought I knew has already forgotten me. But something's watching. And it's waiting. It's hard to explain, but lately, I've been feeling like the city around me is watching. I take the same route to work every day, a quick walk through the park, past the coffee shop, then down the crowded sidewalks of downtown. Usually, I'm focused on my phone or lost in my own thoughts. But now, I catch glimpses, people turning to look at me for just a second too long. Shadows that flicker at the edge of my vision. Faces in crowds that disappear when I blink. Last Tuesday, I noticed a man sitting across from me on the bus. He didn't move or speak, just stared. His eyes seemed hollow, like empty sockets. I got off early to avoid it, but when I looked back from the corner, he was standing at the stop behind me. That night, I locked every door and window, but I couldn't shake the feeling someone was outside, pacing. I checked the security footage this morning. There was nothing there, no one near my apartment. But my front door was scratched. Not deeply, just enough to see the raw wood underneath. And on the scratched wood, I found a single word, written in what looked like dirt or ash. Waiting. I don't know who is waiting, or why. but I'm starting to think it's only a matter of time before they stop waiting and come in. I always thought my apartment was quiet. Too quiet, sometimes, but I like that about it. No roommates, no noisy neighbors, just me and the occasional hum of the city beyond my window. But lately, it's been different. I started hearing the tapping about a week ago. Not loud, just soft taps on the wall behind my bed, usually late at night. At first, I figured it was a pipe or the building settling. Old apartments do that, right? But the tapping didn't stop. One night, I got up to check. I pressed my ear against the wall. The taps answered. Not random. Deliberate. Like a rhythm. I tried to make sense of it. Then I found the note. Slipped under my door in the morning. Written in tiny, precise letters. Do you see me? No signature. No explanation. I asked the building manager. He said no one else was in my unit. No one was supposed to be. Last night, the taps turned into scratching. Fingernails, I think. And when I looked at the wall, there were faint marks, like something trying to get out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But the silence is gone. And the tapping, it's only getting louder. I moved into a new apartment about a month ago. It's nothing fancy, just a small place above a quiet street, but it's mine, and that felt good after months of crashing on friends' couches. The weirdness started with the ceiling light in the bedroom. It flickers sometimes, but only when I'm lying in bed. Not like a normal bulb flicker, more like a deliberate pattern. 3 quick flashes, a pause, then 2 slow ones. I thought maybe it was just faulty wiring, but then I noticed the pattern matches the tapping noises I hear from the wall at night. At first, I ignored it. Just an old building, right? But last week, I heard whispering. Not loud, more like the wind through a cracked window, but distinctly words. I couldn't make out what they said. I asked my neighbor if she heard anything strange, but she said it was just me. Last night, I lay awake, watching the light flicker in that pattern. The whispers got clearer. They said my name. I sat up, heart pounding. The tapping stopped. The light steadied. Silence. But this morning, I found a note slipped under my door. It said, simply, "You're next." I don't know who left it. I don't know what it means. But I'm not sure I want to find out. I never thought much about the old elevator in my building. It's one of those creaky, slow ones that seem stuck in the 70s. Wood-paneled walls, a flickering light, that faint smell of dust and old rubber. I usually take the stairs, but sometimes, when I'm tired, I cave. Last week, I pressed the button and waited. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open with that familiar groan. I stepped inside. The light flickered once, then steadied. I pressed the button for my floor. The doors closed. Then the elevator stopped. No emergency alarm. No flicker of the lights. Just dead silence. The floor indicator didn't change. I pressed the button again. Nothing. I tried the emergency phone. Dead. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a soft voice whisper, "Don't look down." I froze. Looked up. The elevator had no buttons at all. Just a small, cracked mirror on one wall. I stared into it. My reflection smiled. But I wasn't smiling. The door slid open. I stepped out. Into a hallway I didn't recognize. Cold, dimly lit. And empty. I don't know how I got back home. I don't know what that place was. But every time I ride the elevator now, I hear the whisper again. And I'm terrified to look down. Every morning, I take the same route to the corner coffee shop before work. It's nothing special, a cracked sidewalk, a few aging trees, a handful of familiar faces, but it's comforting in its routine. Last week, though, something changed. On my way there, I passed an old man sitting on a bench. He didn't say anything, just stared at me with eyes that seemed too sharp for his wrinkled face. When I looked away, he was gone. The next day, I saw him again. Same bench, same silence. But this time, as I walked past, he whispered something I couldn't quite catch. Curious, I slowed down. "Remember," he said, voice low and gravelly. I shook my head and hurried away. Over the next few days, the sightings continued. He never moved from that bench, but every time he spoke, his words got clearer. "You can't escape. Look behind you. Time is running out." I told a friend, but she laughed it off. "This isn't a movie," she said. But last night, walking home late, I felt a presence close behind me. I turned fast. No one. Just the empty street and my own breath, fogging in the cold. I glanced back toward the bench. The man was there. Smiling. Waiting. I moved into the apartment 3 months ago. It's small, nothing fancy, but it's mine. I like the creaky floors, the way the sunlight spilled through the cracked blinds in the morning. It felt safe. Then, the phone started ringing. No caller ID. No one on the other end. At first, I ignored it. But the calls kept coming. Last night, I answered. Silence. Then a whisper. My name. Slowly. Like someone was right next to me. I hung up. Today, I found a message scrawled on the bathroom mirror. Fogged up from the shower, the words appeared. You're not alone. I wiped it away. But it came back. I don't know who's calling. I don't know how they got inside. All I know is that the apartment feels colder now. And I'm watching the phone, waiting. Waiting for it to ring again. I don't know when it started exactly, but I've been noticing things missing from my apartment. Not just little stuff, important things. My wallet, my phone charger, the keys to my bike. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. I'd put something down and then forget where. But the weird part is where I find it. My wallet was in the freezer. My charger was tucked behind the couch cushions. And last night, I found my bike keys inside the bathroom sink drain. I asked my roommate if he'd been messing with me, but he swore he hadn't even been home. I started setting up a camera, hoping to catch a thief, or maybe me sleepwalking. The footage is strange. There's nothing on camera at all, but sometimes, the objects move on their own. A book slides off the shelf slowly, like pushed by an unseen hand. A drawer opens by itself. And sometimes, just before the battery dies, the camera flickers and catches a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room. I'm not sure what to do. Either my apartment is haunted, or I'm losing control of my own mind. Either way, I'm running out of places to hide. I never noticed the hallway mirror before. It's old, narrow, and leans against the wall near the stairs in my apartment building's lobby. I usually rush past it, but yesterday, I caught something strange. I was coming home late, past 10, and the lobby was empty. As I passed the mirror, I glanced up and thought I saw someone standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dim hallway. I shook it off. Today, on my way out, the mirror looked different. My reflection blinked when I didn't. And when I looked closer, the figure behind me was still there. Only now, it wasn't me. I asked the building manager if anyone else lived here. He gave me a strange look and said no. Last night, I heard footsteps in the lobby. Slow, deliberate. I peeked out my door. Empty hallway. This morning, the mirror was shattered. But in the shards, I saw the figure smiling. Waiting. I work late nights at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. The kind of place where the neon sign flickers and the smell of coffee never really goes away. I like the quiet hours, the regulars, the hum of the fryer. But lately, things have been different. One night, while wiping down the counter, I caught sight of someone sitting in the corner booth. I don't remember anyone walking in. The diner was empty except for me. I glanced over. The booth was empty. I blinked. But then I saw it again, a dark shape, like a shadow, sitting there, watching. I called out, "Hey, you okay?" No answer. I walked over. Nothing but an empty booth and a spilled cup of coffee someone must have left behind. I told myself I was tired. Stress getting to me. But the next night, it happened again. Only this time, I heard footsteps behind me when I was alone in the kitchen. Slow, heavy steps. No one there when I turned around. Last week, the old jukebox started playing on its own. A slow, haunting song I didn't recognize. I asked the other night shift worker if she'd noticed anything strange. She just shook her head and smiled nervously. I don't know if it's my imagination or something else. But every night, when I close up, I swear I feel eyes on me. Waiting. I always liked my morning runs. The quiet streets, the cool air before the city woke up, it was the only time I felt like myself. That changed last week. One morning, just as the sun was starting to rise, I noticed a man standing across the street. He wasn't doing anything, just watching me. No expression, no movement. I crossed to the other side. He didn't follow. I told myself he was probably waiting for someone else. But the next day, he was there again. Same spot, same blank stare. I tried to ignore it, but my heart wouldn't calm. By the third day, I realized he was always there. No matter where I ran, he appeared, just watching. Sometimes from a distance, sometimes closer. I started taking different routes. But he always found me. Last night, I heard a knock on my door. No one was there when I looked. Only a note slipped under the door. Written in shaky letters. Stop running. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he wants. But I'm too scared to run anymore. I'm convinced my apartment is shrinking. I know it sounds insane, but every morning when I wake up, the space feels a little tighter. The hallway seems narrower, the ceiling lower. I keep bumping into things I never used to, my dresser, the door frame, even the kitchen counter. Last week, I measured the distance between the walls. It was normal. This morning, it was an inch less. I don't know how that's possible. I asked my landlord if there had been any construction or repairs. He said no. I checked online. No earthquakes, no structural issues reported. At night, when everything is dark and quiet, I hear whispers, soft, unintelligible, coming from inside the walls. I press my ear against them, trying to catch words, but it's just murmurs. Last night, I woke up gasping. The bed felt cramped, like it was closing in on me. I looked up. The ceiling was inches above my face. I'm too scared to leave. Because if my apartment keeps shrinking, I don't know where I'll go. Or if there will be space for me at all. It started with the photos. I keep a few framed pictures on my desk, family, friends, some from trips I took years ago. Nothing special, just memories. One morning, I noticed something odd. In one photo, a shadowy figure stood behind me. I didn't see it when the picture was taken. I laughed it off, maybe a trick of the light. The next day, more photos changed. The figure got closer, more defined. Sometimes just a silhouette. Sometimes with eyes. I asked my roommate if he'd seen anything strange. He said no. But last night, I woke to the sound of a camera shutter. I live alone. This morning, every photo in my apartment was turned face down. Except one. The one with the figure now standing right beside me. Looking directly at the camera. And smiling. I used to love the night shift at the hospital, the quiet halls, the steady rhythm of machines, the feeling that I was the only one awake in a sleeping world. It was peaceful. Until the whispers started. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Soft voices drifting just outside patient rooms, murmurs that stopped whenever I looked. One night, I passed the old wing, long since closed off. The doors were locked, but I could swear I heard laughter, light, almost childlike. I called security. No one was there. The next week, I found a note slipped under my locker. You don't belong here. No signature. No explanation. I tried to brush it off. Last night, during rounds, my pager buzzed. An emergency code from the old wing. I hesitated. No one had been in that area for years. I followed the directions. The hallway was dark, cold. And at the end, a door creaked open on its own. I didn't go inside. This morning, my locker was open. Inside was a single, faded hospital bracelet. With my name on it. I don't remember ever wearing it. I never thought much about the park near my apartment. It's small, a few benches, some trees, nothing special. I go there sometimes in the evenings to clear my head. Last week, I started noticing something weird. The same man was always there, sitting on the same bench. Watching. I tried not to make eye contact. One evening, I found a note tucked under my door. No return address. Just 3 words. He knows you. I panicked. Locked all my doors. The next night, the man wasn't on the bench. He was standing at the edge of the park. Closer. Watching. I called the police. They said there were no reports of suspicious activity. Last night, I heard tapping on my window. No one was outside. But the curtains moved. And I swear I saw eyes staring back at me. I don't know who he is. But I'm scared he's already inside. I've never been the type to worry much. I live alone in a small apartment just off a busy street, the kind of place where you see the same people every day. The barista at the coffee shop, the old guy who walks his dog around noon, the kid who's always on his phone outside the convenience store. Normal stuff. Routine. But over the last week, things have started to feel off. It began on a Tuesday morning. I woke up, as usual, around 7:15, hit the snooze twice, and then finally got up to make coffee. The apartment was quiet except for the usual hum of the refrigerator. When I walked into the kitchen, I noticed the cabinet door under the sink was slightly ajar. I'm sure I'd closed it the night before. I shrugged it off. Maybe I'd been half asleep and didn't shut it all the way. Later that day, at work, I swore I heard someone whisper my name just as I was about to sit down at my desk. I glanced around, but the office was empty except for me and a few coworkers in the next room. I asked one of them if anyone had called for me, and they looked at me like I was joking. "No. You okay?" they said. I said I was fine, but the feeling lingered, the kind of feeling when you think someone's watching you, even though no one is. That night, I double-checked the locks on my door, even though I always do. The apartment felt colder, like the air was heavier than usual. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, but the silence around me felt loud. Then my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't recognize. It was a text from an unknown number. "I see you." I froze, heart pounding. I stared at the screen for a long time before blocking the number and deleting the message. Maybe a prank, I thought. Someone messing with me because they knew my number. The next day, I started noticing small things. My keys weren't on the usual hook by the door, they were on the kitchen counter. I never put them there. A photo frame on my bookshelf was facing down. I'm pretty sure it was facing out when I went to bed. At work, my computer kept glitching. Documents would disappear or reappear with weird edits I hadn't made. Once, I found an email in my sent folder that I didn't remember sending. It was just a single word: leave. I told myself I was stressed, maybe losing track. But deep down, something felt wrong. One evening, I heard footsteps outside my apartment. Slow, deliberate. I peeked through the peephole, no one there. I opened the door just a crack. Nothing. But then I noticed footprints on the doormat, wet, muddy footprints leading away from my door. I called the building's manager. They said no one else had access to the floor after 9 p.m. except residents. I live alone. I haven't had visitors in weeks. I started sleeping with the lights on, leaving the TV playing low-volume static to fill the silence. But the static seemed to whisper sometimes, like faint voices just beyond hearing. I told myself it was my imagination. Yesterday, I found something else. In the bathroom mirror, written faintly in the fog from my shower was a message: "I'm here." I know I didn't write it. No one else has a key. The locks are still intact. Now, I'm sitting here typing this, watching my reflection in the dark window. I keep telling myself I'm imagining all this. Maybe I'm exhausted or losing it. But then, the lights flickered. And I swear I just saw someone standing behind me. I always thought the creaky old bookstore down the street was just a charming relic. Dusty shelves, musty air, and the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. I went there every Sunday afternoon, losing myself in faded pages. Then the book started whispering. At first, it was just a faint murmur, like someone flipping pages too fast. I told myself it was the old building settling. But one afternoon, as I reached for a book on the top shelf, I heard my name. Clear as day. I spun around. No one. The shopkeeper smiled but didn't say a word. Later, I found a note tucked inside a book I hadn't opened. Don't trust the words. That night, I dreamed of the bookstore. The shelves stretched endlessly, twisting into dark corridors. Books flew off the shelves, pages flipping wildly. And in the center, a shadow with my face, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I went back the next day. The bookstore was gone. Just an empty lot. And the whispering. It's still in my head. I never thought my life would come down to this, sitting alone in a quiet diner at midnight, nursing a lukewarm coffee, trying to convince myself I'm not losing my grip on reality. It started a few days ago, when I noticed the street outside my apartment looked wrong. Not in a I'm in a horror movie kind of way, but more like a subtle shift in how things should be. The lamppost across the street, which normally leans slightly left, was perfectly straight. The tree in front of the corner store lost a few branches overnight, but no one else seemed to notice. I mentioned it to my neighbor, Linda, but she just laughed and said I needed more sleep. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Work's been brutal lately, and I barely get enough rest. But then the little things kept piling up. I'd walk into my office and find my chair turned around, facing the wall. I'm alone there until late at night, so it couldn't have been anyone. The coffee mug I left on my desk was sometimes missing, only to reappear hours later filled with cold coffee. And my phone, the one I keep on silent, would buzz with messages I never received. One read, "Don't look outside." I didn't know what to think. Maybe someone was messing with me? Or maybe I was just too tired, imagining things that weren't there. But then, last night, it got worse. I was coming home from the grocery store, walking the usual route, when I saw a figure standing under the flickering streetlight at the end of the block. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me. I stopped dead, heart racing. When I blinked, the figure was gone. But the streetlight stayed on its shaky flicker. I tried to shrug it off, but my hands trembled as I unlocked my door. Inside, everything seemed normal. Or at least, normal enough. I locked all the doors and windows, then went straight to bed. That's when the dream started. Not nightmares, exactly. More like memories that weren't mine. I dreamt of a house I've never been to, cold and empty, with peeling wallpaper and a cracked mirror that reflected a face I didn't recognize. A voice whispered my name, soft but urgent, and I woke up sweating, unable to tell where the dream ended and reality began. Today, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. It was written in messy, hurried handwriting. "You're not safe. They watch when you sleep." I called the building manager, but they had no idea who could have left it. I asked my neighbors, no one saw anyone suspicious. I even checked my security camera footage. It was just static after 11 p.m. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like my own life is slipping away from me, piece by piece, replaced by something I can't understand. Am I paranoid? Am I imagining all this? Or is someone, or something, playing a game I don't know the rules to? I'm about to finish this coffee and head home, but I can't shake the feeling that if I do, whatever's been watching won't just stay outside anymore. I always thought the old park bench by the river was just a place for quiet reflection. I used to go there after work, sit for a few minutes, watch the water ripple. It was peaceful. Then, one evening, I noticed something strange. A man sat there, alone, staring at me. He never moved. I waited. He didn't respond. The next day, I found a small envelope tucked under my apartment door. Inside was a photo of that bench. And me, sitting there. I don't remember anyone taking it. That night, I went back to the bench. The man was gone. But in the dirt, someone had written, "You're next." I don't know who he is. I don't know what he wants. But I can't stop looking over my shoulder. I've been working the night shift at the warehouse for 3 months now. It's nothing fancy, just loading and unloading shipments, mostly alone in a massive, cold building that smells like metal and dust. I like the quiet at first. No annoying coworkers, no endless emails. Just me and the hum of the fluorescent lights. But lately, something's changed. It started with small things. Little noises I couldn't explain. A tapping sound near the loading docks when no one was there. Boxes moved slightly out of place. My radio would crackle static even though it wasn't turned on. I told myself it was nothing. The building is old, the wiring probably bad. Or maybe I was just tired. Last Thursday, during my break, I went to the break room and found a note taped to the coffee machine. It wasn't signed. It said, "You don't belong here." I stared at it, heart racing, but no one was around. I asked the security guard on my way back if he'd seen anyone suspicious. He just shrugged and said the place gets weird after dark. That night, while stacking crates, I felt eyes on me. I turned around, nothing but empty aisles stretching into darkness. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was paranoia. But then the lights flickered, and the temperature dropped. My breath came out in visible puffs. I reached for my jacket, and the radio on my belt burst to life, whispering static that almost sounded like words. I wanted to leave, but the main door was jammed. I checked the emergency exit, it was locked too. I was trapped. I sat down on a crate, trying to calm my racing mind, when the tapping started again. Louder this time, coming from the far end of the warehouse. Slowly, I stood and walked toward the sound. My footsteps echoed, swallowed by the vast emptiness. I found nothing but a single box, perfectly sealed, sitting in the middle of the floor. I knelt and looked around. No footprints, no signs anyone had been there. I backed away and heard a soft whisper behind me, so faint I couldn't make out the words. I ran to the break room, grabbed my phone to call for help. No signal. I tried the radios again. This time, the static formed into a voice, clear and cold. Leave before it's too late. I don't know what it is. I don't know who's watching me. When the morning crew arrived, the door unlocked like nothing happened. But I haven't gone back since. Now, sitting at home, I keep hearing that tapping. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the warehouse stretching endlessly, shadows moving just beyond my sight. I'm not sure what's real anymore. Maybe I never should have stayed past my shift. Maybe I never belonged there at all. I live alone in a small apartment on the 5th floor. It's nothing fancy, just the usual city noise, flickering streetlights, and the occasional siren far off in the distance. I liked it that way. Predictable. Safe. But lately, the predictability has started to slip. It began with a knocking. Soft. 3 quick taps. Always at 2:17 a.m. The first time, I thought it was the neighbors. The second time, I checked, but no one was there. Then the knocking turned into scratching. Like fingernails on wood. Coming from the walls. I started hearing it in other rooms too. Last night, I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I sat up, heart racing. But no one was there. Just the faint scent of something cold in the towel. This morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Written in shaky letters. Don't open the closet. I don't have a closet. It's the kind of small town where everyone knows your name, or at least thinks they do. I moved here 6 months ago, hoping for a fresh start, something quiet, predictable. What I didn't expect was how quickly the ordinary could twist into something strange. The diner on Main Street is where I usually eat breakfast. It's nothing special, chipped booths, a jukebox that always plays the same old songs, and Betty, the waitress who's been working there for 50 years. She knows my order before I sit down: black coffee, scrambled eggs, toast. Last Thursday morning, I walked in and the place was emptier than usual. Only Betty behind the counter. She smiled like always, but there was something off in her eyes. Like she was watching me, but also looking through me. Morning, Sam, she said. You're early. Yeah, just needed to get out of the house, I replied, sliding into my usual booth. She poured the coffee without a word. I stared out the window, watching the street. No one walking by. The town should have been waking up by now. That's when I noticed the reflection in the window, someone sitting across from me. But I was alone. I blinked. The figure vanished. I looked around the diner. No one else there. Just the hum of the old refrigerator and the ticking clock on the wall. I told Betty about it, half joking. You're tired, she said, wiping a glass. Maybe too many late nights. I wanted to believe her. But then, at night, the dreams came. Not nightmares, really. Just this feeling of being watched. I'd wake up in the dark, heart pounding, convinced someone was standing at the foot of my bed. Last night, I heard knocking on my door. Slow, deliberate. I checked through the peephole, no one there. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty, but I found a small, folded note on the floor. It read, "They never leave." I've started locking every door, double-checking windows. But I can't shake the feeling that whatever it is, it's inside my head now. I don't know if I'm losing it or if this town has secrets buried deeper than I thought. All I know is, I'm not sure who to trust anymore, especially when the reflection in the window keeps coming back. I live alone in a tiny apartment at the end of a quiet hallway. The kind of place where you hardly ever hear footsteps, until now. It started with the keys. Every morning, I'd leave my keys on the kitchen counter. But lately, I keep finding them in different places. On the windowsill, under the couch cushions, even inside the fridge. I thought maybe I was misplacing them, but the pattern felt deliberate. Last night, I woke up to the sound of soft footsteps pacing outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, waiting. The footsteps stopped. Then a faint whisper, "I'm here." I called out, but no answer. This morning, I found my bedroom door locked from the outside. I don't have a spare key. And I don't know who's been moving my things, or standing just beyond the door. I'm starting to wonder if I'm really alone here at all. I work from home, which means my apartment has become both my office and my sanctuary. I like the quiet, the way the soft hum of the city fades into background noise. But lately, that quiet has been different. It started a few nights ago. I was finishing up some emails, the glow from my laptop the only light in the room, when I heard the faintest sound, like footsteps, but slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway outside my door. I froze, listening hard. The noise stopped. I convinced myself it was just the building settling, or maybe someone else coming home late. The next morning, I found my front door slightly ajar. I'm certain I locked it the night before. There was no sign of forced entry, nothing stolen or disturbed, but that feeling of intrusion stuck with me. I told a friend about it, and they said I was overthinking. Maybe I was. But then, things got weirder. My phone would light up with random notifications, messages from contacts I didn't know, cryptic texts with words like watch, soon, or just a single question mark. The messages disappeared before I could open them. I started noticing small changes in the apartment. My keys weren't on the hook where I always leave them. The picture frames on the walls tilted, even though I never touched them. The air felt heavier, like the silence itself was pressing down on me. Last night, I was lying in bed when I saw it, a shadow moving across the ceiling, slow and deliberate, but no one else was home. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just a trick of the light. Then, my phone buzzed. A new message: you can't hide. I'm typing this now because I don't know what else to do. I keep checking every corner of the apartment, locking and relocking the doors, but I feel like I'm being watched, from somewhere I can't see. Maybe it's my imagination. Maybe I'm losing it. But if I am, it's terrifying how real it feels. The subway station near my apartment is usually deserted after midnight. I catch the last train home most nights, and the silence there has always felt almost comforting. Empty platforms, the distant rumble of trains, a few late-night stragglers. But last week, something changed. I was waiting for the train when I noticed a man standing just beyond the edge of the platform. He wasn't doing anything, no bag, no phone, just standing perfectly still and staring at the tracks. I glanced away, then back. He was closer. I started to feel uneasy. When the train arrived, I hurried on. When I looked back, he was gone. I told myself maybe he left before the train pulled in. The next night, he was there again. Closer this time. His face obscured by shadow, but I swear I could feel his eyes on me. I took a different car. Yesterday, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. Written in shaky handwriting. You're on the wrong platform. I don't know what it means, or who's watching me. But the silence of the subway feels heavy now. Like it's hiding something. I live in a small, cramped apartment on the 7th floor of an aging building downtown. It's nothing fancy, just me, my books, and the endless buzz of city life outside my window. I usually like the noise. It reminds me I'm not alone. But lately, that noise feels wrong. It started last week, with the elevator. Every night, when I'm coming home late, the elevator acts up. Sometimes it doesn't arrive when I press the button. Other times, it stops on floors that aren't even in use anymore, old storage or offices long since abandoned. I swear I've seen the doors open to pitch black corridors, but when I peek inside, there's nothing. I told the building manager, but he just laughs it off. Old elevators get quirky, he says. But the feeling doesn't go away. Last night, I took the stairs. Halfway up, I thought I heard someone breathing behind me. I spun around, nothing. Just the dim emergency lights flickering overhead. My heart raced as I kept climbing. When I got to my floor, my apartment door was slightly open. I'm sure I locked it before I left. Inside, everything looked normal, except my kitchen window was wide open. The cold air rushed in, carrying the city's distant sirens and car horns. I closed it and locked the door again. I'm not sure if someone got inside or if I'm starting to imagine things. Tonight, I'm sitting by the window, listening. The building creaks and groans like it's alive. Somewhere far below, a dog barks endlessly. And in the elevator shaft, I swear I can hear something moving. Slow footsteps, pacing up and down. I don't know if it's the building, or something else. But the elevator light is on, and the doors are cracked open. I moved into this old house just a few weeks ago. It's charming in that worn-down way, creaky floors, peeling paint, the kind of place that smells like history. I told myself it was perfect, a fresh start. Then the clock stopped. It's an antique, heavy, with ornate hands that should never have quit moving. But one morning, it froze exactly at 3:17 a.m. I thought maybe it just needed new batteries. That night, I woke up to the sound of ticking. Not from the clock. From the walls. Slow. steady, like a heartbeat. I checked every room. Nothing. But the ticking grew louder. The next morning, the clock was working again. But the time was wrong. It read 11:59 p.m. I don't know if the clock is broken, or if time itself is. And I'm afraid to find out what happens when it strikes midnight. I don't know why I stayed in that hotel room so late. The kind with the faded carpet and peeling wallpaper, the kind you pick because it's cheap and convenient. I was just passing through town, exhausted from the drive, and all I wanted was sleep. But the room felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. The air was thick, like it hadn't been aired out in weeks. The bed looked untouched, but the sheets were oddly rumpled in one corner. The TV was on, flickering static, even though I never turned it on. I told myself to shake it off. Maybe the cleaning staff left it that way. Maybe I was just too tired. I tried to read, but my eyes kept drifting to the bathroom mirror. At one point, I saw a figure standing behind me, a blur in the glass. I spun around. Nothing. I laughed nervously, telling myself I was imagining things. Then the phone rang. The number was unknown. I answered, but no one spoke. Just breathing. Heavy, slow breaths. I hung up and the static on the TV grew louder. I tried to sleep, but the hum of the air conditioner shifted into low whispers. The words I couldn't quite catch felt like warnings. At dawn, I packed my bags and left without breakfast. But on the drive away, I kept thinking about that mirror and the phone call. Who was watching me in that room? And why did it feel like the hotel itself was alive, waiting for me to leave, or maybe hoping I never would? I always thought the old radio in my kitchen was just a dusty relic. It doesn't even have an antenna anymore, but I kept it for nostalgia's sake. Last week, I heard it turn on by itself. Static at first. Then, a voice. Soft. Whispering my name. I unplugged it. It stayed silent. The next night, the radio played again. This time, a crackling song I didn't recognize. I listened. The lyrics were about someone lost, waiting. I tried to get rid of it. Thrown it in the trash. But the radio always came back. Sitting on the counter. Last night, the voice spoke again. Clearer this time. You can't leave. I don't know who's speaking. Or what they want. But I'm afraid this radio has more life than I do. I never really paid attention to the paintings in the hallway of my office building. They're the kind of generic landscapes meant to brighten up dull walls, fields, trees, sunsets. Nothing memorable. But last week, I noticed something odd. I was on the third floor, heading to the restroom, when I glanced at one of the paintings, a quiet forest scene. It looked different. Like the trees were closer, the shadows deeper. I blinked, and it was just a painting again. I shrugged it off and kept walking. The next day, I caught the same painting again. This time, a figure stood just inside the edge of the frame, a pale shape, blurry, almost transparent. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. That night, I dreamt of the forest. The trees stretched endlessly, branches twisting like hands reaching out. I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. The next morning, I went back to the hallway. The painting was gone. In its place, a blank patch of wall. I asked the building manager. He said they'd replaced some old art last week. No one had reported anything strange. But every time I walk those halls now, I feel like something watches from the corners. Shadows just out of sight, whispering words I can't quite catch. Yesterday, I found a note slipped under my office door. It read simply, "Don't follow." I don't know what to think anymore. Maybe it's stress. Maybe I'm seeing things. But part of me wonders if those paintings weren't just art. If they were windows. I've never been good with crowds, so I usually take the back exit from the subway station after work. It's quieter, less chaotic. But lately, something about it has felt off. One evening, as I stepped through the exit, I noticed a man standing just outside the gate. He wasn't moving, just staring at the ground. I nodded politely. No response. The next night, he was there again. This time, his head lifted, and his eyes met mine. Cold. Empty. I hurried away. Last week, I found a folded note slipped under my door. It read, "You can't hide." I told myself it was a prank. But yesterday, I saw him standing outside my building. Watching. Waiting. Now, every time I leave, I feel his eyes burning into my back. And I'm starting to wonder, does he want something from me? Or is he just a shadow I can't outrun? I started noticing the smell first. It was faint, like damp earth mixed with something metallic, but it was never there during the day. Only at night, just before I fell asleep. I live alone in a tiny apartment, top floor of a building that's mostly empty. The neighbors keep to themselves, and I never hear a thing. Except for the smell. One night, I woke up coughing, the air thick and heavy. I followed the scent to the bathroom. The mirror was fogged up, but when I wiped it clear, a message was written there in dripping letters. I'm inside. I spun around. Nothing. The next morning, I found the bathroom door locked. I don't remember locking it. I knocked. No answer. I called a locksmith. He said the door was locked from the inside. But no one was home but me. Now, every night, the smell returns. And I'm terrified of what's behind that door. I've always been a creature of habit. Every morning, I wake up at 6:30, brew my coffee, and walk the same route to the small office where I work as a copy editor. The streets are quiet then, the city still stretching itself awake beneath a pale dawn sky. It's peaceful, predictable, safe. Until 2 weeks ago, when it all started to unravel. It began subtly, little things that felt like glitches in my otherwise steady life. One morning, I left my apartment door unlocked. Not entirely by accident, I realized later, I was distracted, caught up in a restless thought, the kind that spins and spins in your head until it won't stop. But when I got back from work, the door was still unlocked, the lock untouched. Nothing was missing, no signs of entry, but I felt a chill crawling up my spine. Later that day, I started noticing people on my route who didn't usually pass by. An older man standing by the bakery, watching me with unreadable eyes. A woman in a dark coat who always seemed to be just a block behind me, no matter how fast I walked. I told myself it was coincidence. Paranoia. Maybe I was just tired. But then, at work, my computer acted strangely. Files I'd been working on vanished. Emails I didn't remember sending showed up in my sent folder. Short, cryptic messages like "look closer" or "they know." I started double-checking everything, my door locks, my phone's notifications, the timestamps on my emails. Nothing made sense. The more I looked, the less I understood. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to a sound, soft tapping at the window. I live on the 5th floor. No one should be able to reach my window, yet there it was. I pulled the curtain aside slowly. Nothing but the empty street below, glimmering under the streetlights. I tried to convince myself it was a branch brushing against the glass. But then I saw the footprints on the windowsill, wet, muddy, distinct. The next morning, I called the building manager. He promised to check the security cameras. But when I asked to see the footage, he said the cameras hadn't been working for days. I'm not sure if he was telling the truth. The nights grew worse. I started hearing whispering, faint voices that seemed to come from inside the walls. Sometimes, I'd hear my own name, drawn out slowly, like a warning. I stopped sleeping, pacing the apartment in the dark, eyes darting to every shadow. One evening, I found a note slipped under my door. It was written on thick paper, elegant cursive that I couldn't place. It read, "They watch from the edges where light doesn't reach. You're not safe here." I wanted to throw it away, pretend it was a prank. But I didn't. Instead, I taped it to the inside of my closet door, somewhere I'd see it but no one else would. Days passed. The city outside carried on as usual, the honk of cars, the chatter of morning commuters, the hum of life. But inside, everything was breaking down. Last night, I woke to the sound of breathing. Not my own, steady breath, but ragged, uneven breaths right beside my bed. I turned on the light. Nothing. But when I looked into the mirror across the room, I saw something, or someone, standing behind me. A shadowy figure, blurry and indistinct, but unmistakably there. I spun around again. Empty room. I don't know what it wants. I don't know if I'm going crazy or if something truly sinister has found its way into my life. All I know is, every morning, I wake up a little less sure of what's real. And every night, the shadows. I used to like being the last one in the office. It was peaceful. No phones ringing, no Karen from HR asking if I've touched base with anyone, no meetings that could have been emails. Just me, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the occasional clack of my keyboard echoing across the empty floor. I never really thought of the quiet as creepy before. But lately, it started to feel different. Off. Like the silence is holding its breath. It started a couple of weeks ago. I was working late, maybe around 8 or 9. I just finished updating a client spreadsheet when I heard this sound. Not loud, just a faint shuffle, like someone dragging their feet across the carpet. I looked up, half expecting to see Rob or Mia messing around, but the cubicles were empty. The lights at the far end of the floor were already off. Nothing but darkness past the copy room. I told myself it was the building settling or maybe the janitor. But we haven't had a regular cleaning crew since budget cuts. And I didn't hear a vacuum or anything. Just that slow, dragging shuffle. And then nothing. I left not long after that. Since then, it's gotten weirder. The lights in the bathroom flicker when I walk in, but only at night. I've noticed papers out of place when I come back from grabbing coffee. The stapler on my desk once vanished completely, only to show up in the supply closet a few days later. At first I laughed it off, figured I was just sleep deprived. But then, okay, this is going to sound insane. I was in the elevator. It was around 10 p.m., and I just wrapped up a report. The office was empty. I checked. No lights but mine. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the ground floor button, and just as the doors were about to close, they stopped. Like something triggered the motion sensor. But no one was there. And then the lights in the elevator dimmed. Not completely out, just lower, warmer, like candlelight. The door stayed open. And I swear to God, I heard breathing. Shaky, shallow breathing, just behind me. I turned around, heart pounding, but it was empty. I told myself it was just the ventilation system. But the elevator didn't move for almost a full minute. Then the doors shut and everything went back to normal. When I told Leah, my girlfriend, about it, she said I was probably just overtired. She's probably right. Work's been intense. I haven't taken a proper day off in months. But something about the building, especially at night, is starting to feel wrong. There's a reflection I keep catching in the break room window, only at night, only when the lights are off behind me. It looks like a person, just barely visible. No detail, just the vague shape of someone standing still. It disappears the moment I turn on the lights. I told myself it was my own reflection, distorted by the glass, but I started avoiding the break room altogether. I'm scared to say it out loud, but I don't think I'm alone up there. Not after hours. The weirdest thing happened yesterday. I stayed later than usual, closer to midnight. I was about to leave when I noticed something taped to my monitor. A sticky note. Yellow. Just 3 words written in all caps. Stay until close. No one else could have left it. I would have seen or heard them. And I didn't. I was completely alone. I checked the security feed from the hallway. Nothing but me. No one came in or out. And yet, that note was there. In my handwriting. I compared it, just to be sure. The slant, the pressure, it was mine. But I didn't write it. I wouldn't. I left immediately. Didn't even shut down my computer. When I got to the elevator, the lights inside were already dim. I haven't gone back since. I told my boss I came down with something. Took a few sick days. I keep checking my phone, half expecting another note to appear on my screen. But nothing. Just silence. The thing is, I keep thinking about the note. Stay until close. What does that mean? The office doesn't really close not unless there's a holiday. But what if it meant something else? What if it wasn't about the office? Last night, I dreamt I was back there. Alone. Sitting at my desk, staring at the hallway. The lights flickered, and something was coming toward me. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Just watched as it got closer and closer. It didn't have a face, not really. Just the suggestion of one. Hollow eyes and a wide, wet smile. When I woke up, there was a sticky note on my nightstand. Same handwriting. Same yellow paper. Just one word this time. Soon. It started with the phone calls. Not creepy breathing or threats or anything dramatic like that, just silence. Sometimes I could hear faint static, or what might have been someone breathing through their nose, very faint, very still. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I thought maybe it was my mom. She's been forgetful lately, early onset something. We're not sure yet, but she sometimes calls and forgets what she was doing halfway through. But she swore it wasn't her. I asked. The first week it happened 3 times. Always in the evening, right around 7:15. I started turning my phone off around then, which helped, until they started calling the landline. I live alone. Just me and a cat I didn't even really want but ended up adopting because my ex moved out and left him behind. This apartment is nothing special, a little one-bedroom in a brick building from the 70s, kind of tucked behind a gas station and a tire shop. The walls are that gray-beige color they paint everything to hide how cheap it is, and the place always smells a little like someone else's cooking, no matter how often I clean it. But it's quiet, usually. Solid. I liked it here. I used to. The first time the landline rang, I didn't even recognize the sound. No one ever called me. I only kept it because the building's buzzer system still used it. I picked up, expecting it to be a neighbor or delivery person. Nothing. Just that low, shuffling static. Like the sound of clothes rubbing together in a closet. After that, I started unplugging the phone at night. Just yanked the cord right out of the wall. But the calls kept coming to my cell. Same time. Same nothing on the other end. I told myself it was a prank. Or some autodialer glitch. The alternative, that someone was doing this on purpose, for me, felt stupid. Paranoid. But then my cat started acting weird. Shadow's not exactly affectionate. He's one of those long, lean, mean-looking black cats who acts like you're the one intruding on his space. But suddenly, he started sleeping right next to me, curled up tight against my side like a baby. And every night at exactly 7:10, he'd get up from wherever he was and stare at the front door. Not just a glance, he stared. Ears flat. Tail twitching. He did it for 5 nights in a row before I got brave, or dumb, enough to check the peephole. No one was there. But I swear, the hallway looked wrong. Not dark, just dimmer than it should have been. And too quiet. Like the building was holding its breath. I told myself I was imagining things. I do that sometimes. Get in my head, especially when I'm stressed. My job, I'm in tech support, remote, can be draining. People call and scream about printers not working and think I control the satellites. It grinds you down. Makes you feel invisible. But then the photos started changing. I keep a few old ones on the fridge, me and my sister at the lake, my parents' anniversary dinner, a Polaroid of me in a Halloween costume from years back, standing in this very living room. Nothing special. But one night, I was getting a drink, and I swear, this sounds crazy, I swear the Halloween photo was different. In the original, I was dressed as a vampire, doing this stupid dramatic cape pose. But now I was standing still. Arms at my side. Not smiling. I thought maybe I remembered it wrong. That maybe I had more than one photo from that night. But the next day, it changed again. This time the living room behind me was darker. My reflection in the window was gone. I dug through drawers trying to find the original, the one I knew I had. Couldn't find it. I started watching the photo every day. It kept changing. Little things. My expression. The background. The clock on the wall behind me said different times. Once it read 7:15. I don't sleep much anymore. I hear things at night, footsteps above me, even though the apartment above has been empty for months. My landlord said the last guy left suddenly. No warning. Just packed up and vanished. Left behind furniture, clothes, even his toothbrush. The landlord laughed when he told me that. Said he probably got spooked. Place has weird vibes, he joked. People either stay forever or leave in the middle of the night. I don't think he was joking. A few nights ago, I came home from the grocery store and found the door to my apartment already unlocked. I stood there for maybe 10 full minutes, just holding the doorknob, trying to remember if I'd locked it. I always lock it. It's habit. I check twice before I leave. Inside, nothing looked touched. But the photo on the fridge? It was missing. And in its place, there was a new one. Me, sleeping. My bedroom in the background. My mouth slightly open, my face turned toward the window. The window was open in the photo. It's never open. It's painted shut. I didn't call the police. What would I even say? That my fridge photos were haunted? That I was getting prank calls from silence and my cat was scared of nothing? They'd write it down. Maybe even show up. They'd do a walkthrough, ask if I had enemies. Tell me to stay with a friend. But I don't have anyone close. Not anymore. And honestly, I'm not sure they'd even find anything. Last night, I unplugged everything. My phone. The landline. Wi-Fi router. Even the TV. I sat in the dark with Shadow on my lap, shaking like a leaf. At 7:15, he jumped off and ran under the bed. I didn't move. There was a knock at the door. Just once. Light. Like someone using just their fingertips. I didn't answer. I didn't breathe. It came again. One knock. When I finally got the courage to look through the peephole, the hallway was empty. But the air smelled like soil. Wet, freshly dug soil. And the doorknob was cold. Too cold. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I'm cracking, if this is stress, or loneliness, or something worse. But tonight, I'm not going to wait. Tonight I'm going out there. I have to know if there's something on the other side of the door. Or if there's something inside me. I moved into the apartment because it was cheap, not because it felt right. The building's old, late 50s maybe, tucked between a boarded-up laundromat and a 24-hour deli that smells like fryer grease and burnt coffee. The walls are thin, the radiator makes this clanking noise like it's coughing itself to death, and the hallway lights flicker like a bad horror movie cliché. But rent's insane in the city, and I needed a place. So, I signed the lease and tried not to think too hard about the stain on the ceiling or the way the super avoided eye contact. It was apartment 3B. Nothing fancy, just a narrow hallway, a cramped kitchen, a small bedroom with a window that looks out onto an alley filled with dumpsters and pigeons. I figured I'd be here a few months, get back on my feet, then find somewhere better. But something's wrong here. I know how that sounds. I do. But I'm not crazy. It started subtly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and the bedroom window would be open. I'm a light sleeper, and I don't sleep with it open, ever. Not in this city. Too many sirens, too much noise. I'd lock it before bed, check it twice sometimes. Still, I'd wake up and it would be open, the air cold and damp, like breath. Then things started moving. Not in a big, dramatic way, just small stuff. My toothbrush would be in the kitchen sink. My socks, all balled up and damp, stuffed behind the toilet. My keys, always my keys, moved. I started leaving them in the same place every day, the little dish by the door. But I'd find them in my coat pocket, in the fridge once. Once, I found them in the oven. I thought maybe I was losing it. Stress. Sleep deprivation. Too much caffeine. I even Googled early signs of a breakdown, stared at a checklist like it might diagnose me. But deep down, I didn't believe I was imagining it. Not all of it. One night, around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate steps. Nothing unusual, right? But here's the thing, there is no apartment above me. Just the roof. I went up the next day to check, convinced maybe I'd misunderstood the layout. But no. Just a locked maintenance hatch and a rusted vent. Nothing that could explain the sound of pacing, back and forth, like someone was thinking hard or trying to wear a hole in the ceiling. I tried asking my neighbors, but no one wanted to talk. Most of the other tenants are older, quiet. Some barely speak English. One woman, Mrs. Halprin, across the hall, just looked at me and said, "Don't let it in." That's all. Then she closed the door. I thought about moving out. I even started packing once. But then I woke up one morning, and everything I'd packed was unpacked. Back exactly where it had been. Even the shirts I'd folded and put in a suitcase were hung up neatly in my closet. I live alone. No one has a key. Sometimes I hear whispering. Just on the edge of sleep. Not words, exactly, more like breath pretending to be words. It comes from the walls. And sometimes, from behind the bathroom mirror. I tried covering the mirror once. Taped a towel over it. But the next morning, the towel was gone, folded on the bathroom floor, and the mirror was different. Like it had a slight warp to it. Like it wasn't just reflecting me, it was waiting. Last night was the worst so far. I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone, trying not to acknowledge the growing tightness in my chest, when I heard the bedroom door creak open. I froze. I live alone. I know I locked it. I always lock it. I didn't look at first. I couldn't. I just lay there, trying to breathe, ears straining for any sound. And then I heard it, a low scraping, like nails dragging across the floor. Slow. Deliberate. I turned on the lamp. Nothing there. But the door was open. Wide open. And on the wooden floor, leading from the hallway to the foot of my bed, were long, pale smears. Like someone had dragged their fingers through dust. Or something wetter. I didn't sleep after that. Today, when I came home from work, there was something new. A note. Just a torn scrap of yellow paper, stuck to the inside of the front door. It said, "You let IT in." I didn't. I swear I didn't. But I think it's in here with me. I moved into the apartment above the bakery because it was cheap and came with a parking spot, which in this city is like gold. It was a little cramped and the floor slanted in weird places, but it had charm. Exposed brick, big windows, and that constant warm smell of sugar and bread rising from below. At first, it felt perfect. Quiet at night, and during the day, I could work from the little nook by the window and listen to the distant hum of customers and the clink of dishes in the cafe downstairs. It felt comforting, like living inside a memory. The only thing that bugged me was the mirror in the hallway. It came with the apartment, screwed into the wall like it had been there forever. Tall and narrow with a tarnished gold frame, warped a little at the bottom like it had been through a fire or flood. The glass wasn't broken, just off. Reflections looked a little delayed, like the mirror was a second or two behind. I figured it was old, distorted, nothing to think about. But then one night I saw myself move when I wasn't moving. It was late, probably around 1 a.m. I'd gotten up for water and was walking past the hallway. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, just my shoulder and part of my face. I stopped to look, mostly out of that half-asleep vanity we all have, and my reflection kept walking. It turned its head, looked directly at me, and smiled. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then it caught up, like a buffering video. Suddenly we were back in sync, and everything looked normal again. I told myself it was exhaustion. Maybe a trick of the light. I didn't sleep well for a few nights after that, but I avoided the mirror. Easy enough. Until it wasn't. About a week later, I started hearing noises, soft ones. Whispering. Not words I could understand. Just the rhythm of voices, too low and quick to catch, like someone praying behind a wall. It always came from the hallway, always late at night, always when I was alone. I did the usual stuff, checked the walls, the vents, even knocked on my neighbor's door. No one else heard it. One guy downstairs said he couldn't hear anything but the bakery ovens. The mirror, though, it started doing other things. Reflections of things that weren't there. I'd see someone behind me, a figure, vague, standing just at the edge of the hallway, and when I turned, no one. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of the apartment in the reflection, but wrong. Not like a funhouse mirror, more like the layout was slightly off. A window where a door should be. My coffee mug on the left side of the table instead of the right. One morning I saw a reflection of myself making coffee before I'd even gotten out of bed. That's when I covered it up. Threw a blanket over it, taped it down. Thought maybe I was just unraveling a bit. Too much caffeine, too much isolation. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't want them to look at me like I was broken. But the sounds didn't stop. The whispering got louder. Still not words. Just presence. I started feeling cold spots in the hallway, right around the mirror. Like a draft coming from the wall, even though everything was sealed tight. Shadow shapes began appearing in the apartment, quick flickers at the corner of my eye. Always behind me. Always in that sliver of space I couldn't quite look at directly. Then, a few nights ago, I had this dream, or I thought it was a dream. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Just breathe. The blanket I'd taped over the mirror slowly slid down, like someone was peeling it off. I couldn't see who, or what, was doing it, but I could feel something watching me. Then the mirror lit up. Not with light, more like it became brighter, like water catching moonlight. And in it, I saw myself standing at the foot of my bed, head tilted, eyes wide, smiling. The reflection raised a hand. My body didn't move. Just the version in the mirror. Then it stepped out of frame. I woke up screaming. Or, I thought I woke up. I was still in bed, the mirror was covered, the hallway dark. But my hands were ice cold, like I'd been holding something metal. That was 2 days ago. I haven't left the apartment since. I try not to look at the mirror at all now. Even with the blanket, I swear I can feel it. Like it's pressing out, bulging subtly against the cloth. Last night, I woke up to the sound of the tape peeling off. Slow. Deliberate. This morning, I found the mirror completely uncovered. And the reflection? It's not right anymore. The apartment behind me is too clean. Too still. My reflection doesn't blink when I do. And just now, just a second ago, I walked past it, didn't look, didn't even glance, and I saw my reflection still standing there. Watching me walk away. I haven't seen it move since. But I think it's waiting. I don't know when the silence started feeling heavier than sound. It wasn't always like this. My apartment was quiet, sure, but not suffocating. I moved in 6 months ago. Top floor, no neighbors above me, and only one unit across the hall. Never saw them. A young couple, the landlord said, kept to themselves. I like that. I work remotely. Graphic design, mostly for small businesses. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me in hoodies and bad coffee. My days are predictable. Wake up, check emails, walk to the corner bodega, come back, work, dinner, maybe a show or two. Then sleep. Repeat. But lately, something's been off. It started with the light. There's a street lamp right outside my window. Annoying at first, but I got used to it. It buzzes softly, gives the living room this orangey glow at night. But one evening, I noticed it was flickering, not rapidly, just a slow, rhythmic pulse. On, off, on, off. Like a heartbeat. I figured it was dying. But it kept doing it. For days. Same tempo. Same pattern. I emailed the city, no reply. Then I noticed my alarm clock was off by exactly 7 minutes. Not ahead or behind, just wrong. My phone, my laptop, even the microwave, they all matched. Only the alarm clock was off. I reset it. Checked the batteries. Thought maybe I bumped it. Next morning, off by 7 minutes again. I laughed it off. Told myself I was tired. I was tired, hadn't been sleeping well. Dreams I couldn't remember. I'd wake up with the sheets twisted around my legs, drenched in sweat, heart pounding like I'd just sprinted through the dark. And the apartment started to feel different. Not haunted, not exactly. Just wrong. Like someone had moved things slightly when I wasn't looking. A mug in a different cabinet. My keys on the floor when I swore I left them on the table. A faint smell, something metallic, just for a second, gone before I could really register it. I stopped going to the bodega. Didn't want to leave. Every time I did, the door to the apartment across the hall would be cracked open just a sliver. Never wide. Never shut. Just ajar. I never heard voices. Never saw anyone come or go. One day, curiosity got the better of me. I knocked. No answer. I waited. Then I heard it. A shuffle. Just one. Like someone had shifted their weight behind the door. Not coming closer, not stepping back. Just acknowledging. I turned and went back inside. Locked the door. Deadbolt and chain. After that, the silence in my apartment changed. It wasn't quiet anymore, it listened. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the air was waiting for me to speak. Testing me. I tried calling my sister, but every time I reached for the phone, I couldn't remember what I wanted to say. Just held it in my hand until the screen went dark. Then I'd set it down, feeling like I'd forgotten something important. I started keeping a journal. Nothing poetic, just notes, observations, questions. On Tuesday, I wrote. Did I hear breathing from the vents? On Wednesday. Why did the hallway smell like burnt hair? By Friday. The reflection in the microwave doesn't blink when I do. That night, I unplugged the microwave. Covered the reflective surface with a dish towel. Didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, waiting for the silence to break. Then the dreams came back. More vivid. Still couldn't remember them when I woke, but I'd find strange things. Dirt under my fingernails, small bruises on my arms, a scrape on my knee. Like I'd been crawling. Last night, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not loud. Just slow and deliberate. I got out of bed and peered through the peephole. The door across the hall was wide open. No lights inside. Just black. I waited, breath held, until my chest hurt. Something moved. It was fast, too fast to be a person. A shape, low to the ground, scuttling just out of view. I jerked back from the door, heart in my throat. Locked everything again. Pushed the couch against it. I didn't sleep. And now it's morning, or at least the clock says it is. But the light outside is wrong, too pale, almost blue. The street lamp's still flickering. I checked the hallway a few minutes ago. The door across the hall is shut. And there's something taped to mine. It's a photo. Me. Sleeping. Taken from inside the room. I'm not sure I ever woke up. It started with the beeping. Just this faint, rhythmic sound. Not loud. Not even annoying at first. Just consistent. I thought it was coming from the neighbor's apartment. Their smoke detector or alarm clock or something. You know how in those older buildings the walls are basically made of paper? I figured it'd stop eventually, so I ignored it. I live alone. One bedroom on the 3rd floor of an old red brick complex downtown. Nothing fancy. Creaky floors, radiator heat, windows that let in more wind and light. But it's mine, and it's quiet enough most of the time. That first night, the beeping kept me up. Every few seconds, beep. Like a watch alarm that someone forgot to turn off. I got up around 2 a.m. and walked around my place, trying to figure out if maybe it was something in here after all. I checked my microwave, my stove, the smoke detector in the hall. Nothing. Even took the batteries out just in case. Still, beep. I pressed my ear to the wall shared with the neighbor's place. It sounded louder there, but maybe I was just imagining. I'd never actually met whoever lived next door. The blinds were always drawn, mailbox overflowing. I'd seen someone once in the hallway, a man, tall, kind of gaunt, but he just nodded at me and kept walking, keys already out. Anyway, the next morning, it was gone. Silence. I laughed it off, kind of embarrassed by how worked up I'd gotten. Lack of sleep does weird things to your brain. But then it came back. Not that night, but a few days later. And this time, it didn't stop. Beep. Every 4 seconds. Measured. Constant. Like something counting time I didn't understand. I couldn't tune it out anymore. I couldn't sleep. I tried white noise, earplugs, music, nothing helped. It was always there. Even at work, I'd hear it, like an echo in my head. I asked around the building. Knocked on doors, made it casual. Hey, have you heard this weird beeping lately? I think it's coming from the 3rd floor? Most people shrugged. A few hadn't noticed anything. One guy, Frank, I think, from 3B, gave me a weird look and said, "You too?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He looked away. "Never mind. Forget it." When I tried pressing him, he mumbled something about an old boiler system and walked off. But there is no boiler on the 3rd floor. The furnace is in the basement. The weird part? It started following me. I know how that sounds. But I'd be out grabbing coffee, and I'd hear it. Just faint. Beep. Like it was coming from behind the counter or someone's phone, except no one else noticed. I'd look around, and people were just going about their lives, oblivious. I went back to the hardware store and bought one of those RF detectors, thinking maybe someone planted something. Paranoia, I know. But I scanned every inch of my apartment. Nothing. Then things got worse. The beeping changed. It skipped once. Just once. Like, beep, beep. Nothing. Beep. It threw me off, like missing a stair you thought was there. My skin prickled. That one missing beat felt intentional. I started seeing shadows in the hallway when I came home. Always just out of the corner of my eye. I'd hear footsteps stop when I opened my door. And that neighbor, the tall one, I haven't seen him since that first time. I'm not sure he was ever real, to be honest. I asked the super if anyone lived in 3D. He gave me this look, like I'd said something wrong. "That unit's empty," he said. "Been vacant for months." I must have looked confused, because he added, "Had a guy in there, yeah. But well, he left. Sudden. Didn't give notice. We've had trouble renting it since." That night, I unlocked my door and paused. The air smelled off, metallic, like old coins. The apartment was dark, but the hallway light from behind me threw long shadows across the floor. And then I noticed something new. On the wall across from the entrance, scratches. Thin, vertical scratches. 4 of them, spaced apart like claw marks, dragged down the plaster. I didn't own a pet. I ran my fingers over them. The drywall crumbled slightly at the edges. They were fresh. Beep. Closer now. I swear it was coming from inside the walls. I barely slept. I'd wake up gasping, convinced someone was in the room. I'd turn on the lights and everything would be still. But I kept the kitchen knife on my nightstand. Just in case. Then, 2 nights ago, I woke up to silence. No beeping. I thought I'd finally lost it. I sat there in bed, holding my breath. The quiet was deafening. Not peaceful, wrong. Like everything was holding its breath with me. That's when I saw the light. A soft, pulsing glow, leaking out from under the wall, just a sliver, where the baseboard met the floor. Like something alive was behind it, breathing slow and steady. I got up, heart pounding, and knelt down. I pressed my ear to the wall. No beeping. Only a whisper. Faint, garbled, like a radio station out of range. But I swear it said my name. I haven't gone back since. I'm writing this from a hotel a few blocks away. I can still hear it, sometimes. That beat. Somewhere behind the silence. When I close my eyes, I see that light. And now I'm starting to forget things. I called my sister yesterday and halfway through the conversation, I blanked on her name. She laughed it off, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. I look in the mirror and my face feels wrong. Familiar, but not mine. I don't know what's real anymore. I just know something is watching. And it's getting closer. It was around 3 a.m. when I realized the office lights were still on. I was the last one there, again. Freelance copywriter, but the company lets me use one of their spare cubicles downtown for free, which sounds nice until you realize it means no boundaries. If a client emails me at 10 p.m., I feel obligated to respond from my professional space. Productivity theater. I hate it. Anyway, I was packing up when I noticed the overhead fluorescents hadn't gone into their usual half-power night mode. The sensors usually dim them around midnight to save energy. That night, they were all blazing. It was weird, but not unheard of. Maybe maintenance was running late. I zipped my bag and grabbed my phone. That's when I noticed something else. The break room TV was on. Now that was strange. It's one of those wall-mounted flat screens no one actually uses. Set to the local news, usually muted. But the volume was up. Not loud, just barely above a whisper. I could hear the faint murmur of voices as I passed. I paused at the doorway. The screen showed a live traffic cam, one of those grainy shots from atop a light pole. Cars passing, headlights dragging like comets. Nothing out of the ordinary, except the Chiron at the bottom. It didn't scroll. It just said, "He is still in the building." I stared at it for a full minute. Thought maybe it was a glitch, or one of those weird late-night ARG stunts. I stepped inside and grabbed the remote from the counter. Hit mute. Then unmute. The volume disappeared completely. Not lowered, gone. Dead silence. Then the picture froze. Traffic cam paused. Lights frozen mid-blur. I felt this sharp tug in my gut. Like when you're halfway up a staircase and your foot slips back one step. You don't fall, but your whole body braces. That's the best I can describe it. I backed out of the break room slowly, holding my breath like the air itself might be different in there. The office was still lit like it was noon. I could hear the vents humming above me. The place should have felt familiar, safe, even, but suddenly everything looked posed. Like a photograph of an office rather than an actual space. I passed Gary's desk. He's been out all week, vacation in Vermont, I think. His monitor was on. Bright blue login screen. I leaned closer. The keyboard was typing. Slow, deliberate keystrokes. Like someone was holding down one key at a time with a pencil. G. A. R. Y. I. S. N. O. T. G. O. N. E. I stepped back. My phone buzzed. Just once. I looked down. No notifications. Nothing on the lock screen. Just the time. 3:07 a.m. I left. Didn't even take my bag. Just bolted to the stairwell. The weirdest thing? No one else was there, not even security. Lobby was empty. Lights still on, music playing softly from hidden speakers. That same slow jazz loop they've had for years. But something about it sounded off. I don't know how to explain it. Like the instruments weren't playing in quite the right order. Like someone had stitched the melody together from memory and got it just slightly wrong. I didn't sleep when I got home. Couldn't. I kept thinking about the office, the screen, the voice I thought I heard whisper my name just as I stepped into the stairwell. Today, I got a message from my manager. "Hey, just checking in. You left your bag here overnight. Weird thing is, the camera's glitched for about an hour. Mind swinging by today? Maintenance found some stuff. Note." I texted back and told them to toss the bag. Buy a new laptop. Change all my passwords. I'm writing this from a coffee shop across town. Big windows. Lots of people. No TVs. No weird noises. Still, just now, just as I finished that sentence, I looked up and saw a man standing across the street, facing the cafe, wearing an old office ID badge around his neck. It was my face on the badge. But not my name. I used to love staying late at the office. Not in a workaholic way. It was just peaceful. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the empty cubicles, the city glowing through the windows, quiet in a way that made it easier to breathe. No phones ringing, no pointless meetings, no forced small talk. Just me, my tasks, and time. I worked in an insurance firm downtown. Nothing exciting, mostly data entry, policy updates, account flags, stuff that blurred together if you weren't paying attention. But it paid okay, and the benefits were decent. I'd found a rhythm with it. I liked feeling useful. About a month ago, my boss asked me to cover the night shift for a week. A system migration thing, data transfers that had to be manually verified while the servers were under less traffic. I didn't mind. Like I said, I preferred the quiet. The first night was uneventful. I sat up at my desk, brewed some terrible break room coffee, and clicked my way through a backlog of flagged accounts. Around 2:30 a.m., I went to stretch my legs, walked the rows of empty desks, peeked out the break room window at the black glass of the building across the street. It all felt comfortably empty. But I noticed something strange when I came back. My chair was turned slightly. Not much. Just enough that it was facing the corner of my cubicle instead of my monitors. I brushed it off. I figured I must have bumped it on the way out. I sat down, refocused, and didn't think about it again. The next night, though, I found my monitor turned off when I returned from the bathroom. Now, I never turn my monitor off manually. It goes to sleep on its own, and even if it hadn't, I hadn't been gone more than 2 minutes. Still, I clicked the mouse, screen came back on, everything was fine. Just strange. The third night, things escalated. I had this habit, still do, of leaving a sticky note on the corner of my monitor with a little tally of the tasks I'd finished. Just something satisfying about crossing them off. That night, when I went to refill my coffee, the note had been moved. It wasn't where I left it. It was stuck on the edge of the cubicle wall now, and 3 more tally marks had been added, written in ink that wasn't mine. I stared at it for a long time. Then I laughed a little, nervously. Told myself it had to be the cleaning crew, or someone from IT playing a joke. But when I checked the logs the next morning, curiosity got the better of me. No one else had badge access to the floor during my shift. Just me. I started noticing other things. Office supplies vanishing. A stapler I never used placed on my keyboard. My screensaver replaced with an image I didn't recognize, dark, out of focus, maybe a ceiling tile? And then there was the sound. It started on the 5th night. This faint, rhythmic tapping. Like someone lightly drumming their fingers on a desk. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. It seemed to echo around the room. I stood up, walked the aisles of empty cubicles, called out once, half joking. Nothing. But when I sat back down, the tapping stopped. I didn't sleep well after that. Even at home, I felt this tightness in my chest, like I'd forgotten something important. Something I'd misplaced. The silence of the night shift started to feel oppressive, like the building was breathing around me, watching me. On the 7th night, I brought a flashlight. Don't ask me why. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself there was nothing there. That I wasn't losing it. Around 3 a.m., I heard the elevator chime. That shouldn't have happened. You need a badge to access our floor after hours, and I was the only one logged in. I grabbed the flashlight, stepped into the hallway, heart hammering. The elevator doors were closed. The floor indicator above them blinked. 7. I work on the 12th. The elevator began to rise. Slowly. 8. 9. 10. I stepped back, grip tightening on the flashlight. 11. The doors opened. Empty. Of course it was empty. I walked forward, leaned in, and heard breathing. Not mine. Not shallow. A slow, steady exhale. Like someone asleep. But the elevator was empty. I stepped in anyway, scanning the corners, the ceiling, the small vent in the floor. The breathing stopped. I hit 12 and rode it back up, trying not to look at my reflection in the elevator mirror. For a second, I thought it smiled at me before I did. When I returned to my desk, the sticky note was gone. In its place was a printed page. No heading, no formatting. Just one sentence. You're not the only one. WHO stays late. I didn't finish the shift. I packed my things and left. I haven't been back since. HR said they never asked anyone to cover the night shift. Claimed it was a scheduling error. That no one should have been working alone after hours, especially not for a week straight. They couldn't explain the badge logs. Or the print job. Or the fact that my workstation had been flagged as active every night for the following week, even though I never logged in again. I checked sometimes, just to see. Last night, I looked. It showed activity at 3:11 a.m. A file opened from my desktop. One word, in the document name, return. I never named anything that. And I don't think I ever will. The first time I heard the knocking, I thought it was just the pipes. Old house, you know? You expect things like that. Groans in the walls, floorboards that shift like they're breathing. I grew up in apartments, so I'm still getting used to how a house makes noise even when you're standing still. It was a quiet little rental just outside of town, cheap, because the owners moved out fast and left half their furniture behind. Nothing fancy. Just a couch that smelled faintly of dog, a chipped coffee table, and a heavy wooden wardrobe in the bedroom. That thing gave me the creeps right away, but I didn't have the heart to drag it to the curb. I figured I'd just ignore it. The knocking started the second night. Soft. 3 taps. Then nothing. I was in bed, reading. At first, I thought it came from the hallway, maybe the front door. I paused, held my breath, waited. Silence. I went back to reading. Then again, 3 soft knocks. Closer this time. Like they came from just outside the bedroom wall. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rats, maybe. Or old plumbing. But it wasn't that kind of sound. It wasn't random. It was polite. Rhythmic. Like someone waiting to be let in. I got up and checked the hallway. Dark. Still. The kind of stillness that buzzes in your ears. I even looked out the window. Nothing. But when I came back inside and shut the door, I heard it again. 3 knocks. This time, I swear, it came from inside the wardrobe. I froze. I've never been the jumpy type. I don't believe in ghosts. Never had a reason to. But something about that sound made my skin crawl like I was being watched. I told myself it was in my head. I hadn't been sleeping well. Too much caffeine. Too many hours staring at screens. But I didn't open the wardrobe. I pushed a chair in front of it, like that would do anything. The next night, I tried to drown it out. Played music, left the TV on. Took melatonin. Still heard it. 3 knocks. Same time. Same rhythm. This time, the wardrobe door creaked, just a little. Like something inside had shifted. I didn't sleep at all after that. On the 4th night, I had a friend over. Just to see if they heard it too. I didn't say anything at first, just waited. Around 1:17 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock. It happened. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. We both froze. My friend turned to me, pale. What the hell was that? I didn't answer. He pointed at the wardrobe. Dude, is there something in there? I told him I didn't know. That I hadn't looked. That I couldn't. He did. Of course he did. He pulled the chair aside and yanked the door open. Empty. Just some dusty shelves and a faint smell like mildew and wood rot. Nothing out of the ordinary. He laughed. Man, your house is messing with you. We both laughed. But it felt wrong. Like laughing in the middle of a funeral. He left in the morning. Later that day, I opened the wardrobe again, just to prove to myself there was nothing to be afraid of. I checked the back panel, knocked on it, even stuck my head inside. When I turned to leave, I noticed something scratched into the inside of the door. Not visible when it's closed. Just on the edge. Don't let him out. I haven't touched it since. The knocking still comes. Every night. Same time. Same rhythm. 3 knocks. Sometimes, when I lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, I swear I can hear breathing, low and steady, coming from behind that door. I tried moving out last week. Packed everything, loaded the car, even started driving. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the wardrobe. Just sitting there, in the backseat. I slammed the brakes and jumped out. There was nothing there. Just my bags. My jacket. No wardrobe. I came back to the house. I don't know why. It was like I had to. Tonight's knocking came early. Same pattern. But this time, after the 3rd knock, there was a voice. Soft. Almost a whisper. Right up against the wood. Please. I don't know what to do. I moved into the apartment because it was cheap. That's really it. I'd just gotten out of a long relationship, was trying to get back on my feet, and this listing popped up. Studio apartment, utilities included, month-to-month lease, no background check. That should have been a red flag, but I was too tired to be cautious. The building was old, this crumbling brownstone tucked between a laundromat and an empty storefront. The hallway lights flickered, the floorboards groaned, and my radiator made this weird knocking sound like someone tapping from the inside. But I told myself it had character. The landlord was this woman named Mrs. Calloway, late 60s, hunched posture, smelled like clothes. She handed me the keys with this flat look and said, "Quiet hours start at 9. Don't leave food out. If something knocks, don't answer it." I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. The first few nights were fine. The apartment was small, but I made it mine. I put up a few posters, found a second-hand armchair for the corner, and kept the window cracked for air, even though it let in the sounds of the city, sirens, buses, distant shouting. All things I could live with. But there was something off about the silence inside the apartment. I don't know how to explain it exactly. You'd think the city noise would drown everything out, but at night, it felt like the walls swallowed sound. Like the space went hollow, empty in a way that made your skin itch. And then the knocking started. It was just after midnight the first time. 3 sharp knocks from the inside of the closet. I froze. I live alone. The closet is shallow, barely deep enough for a coat rack. I stared at the door, heart pounding, waiting. Nothing else happened. I laughed it off eventually, said maybe something fell. Didn't even open the door. Just went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. Same time. Same 3 knocks. I tried to be brave, got up and opened the closet. Nothing inside except a few jackets and a laundry basket. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Old building. Pipes. Settling wood. That kind of thing. But it didn't stop. Every night, just past midnight, knock knock knock, from the closet, or the bathroom, or sometimes the wall behind my bed. Always in threes. Always sharp. And I never saw anything. Never caught it in the act. I brought it up to Mrs. Calloway once, in passing. She just nodded and said, "Don't open the door if it's knocking. It's not for you." I didn't know what to say to that. The dream started the next week. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, sure I'd heard something whispering my name. Sometimes I'd see a figure standing at the end of my bed, tall, too tall, arms long enough to reach the floor, but when I turned on the light, the room was empty. I blamed the stress. Maybe even the breakup. Nightmares were normal, right? But then I started noticing things moving. Small things at first. A mug left on the counter would end up in the sink. The bathroom mirror would fog even though I hadn't showered. The worst was my keys. I always leave them on the hook by the door, but I started finding them on the windowsill, or under the couch, or once, in the fridge. I tried to stay away more. Spent long hours at coffee shops. Took extra shifts at work. But I always had to come back. And every time I did, it felt like something had been there. Like the air had waited. Like the apartment had breathed me in and was still exhaling. Last week, I set up my phone to record overnight. Just to see. It recorded 8 hours. At 12:03 a.m., it caught the knock, 3 sharp taps from the closet. Then, silence. But at 12:47, the video glitched. Just for a second. And when it came back, the angle had changed. The phone was pointed at the bed. At me. I never touched it. I played it back a dozen times. That moment, right before the camera shifts, there's a frame, just one, where you can see something standing in the corner. Blurred. Thin. Watching. I didn't sleep that night. I kept all the lights on, sat in the chair, just waited for morning. Yesterday, I came home and found the closet door wide open. Inside, everything I'd ever lost in that apartment was sitting in a pile. My keys, my phone charger, a single sock, a spoon I hadn't even noticed was missing. On top of it all was a piece of paper. No handwriting. Just 3 words, printed. Let me in. I'm not going back tonight. I don't know if it ever needed my permission. I think maybe it's already in. And now it's just waiting for me to come home. I started noticing her on the train about a month ago. Same time every evening, 6:42 p.m., the red line heading north. I don't even know why I noticed her at first. She wasn't doing anything strange. Just sitting, always in the same seat. Far end of the car, facing the window, arms folded tight like she was cold. No phone, no book. Just staring. It's a long commute, from the city out to where I live. 45 minutes, give or take. Most people fidget, scroll, fall asleep. Not her. She didn't move. Not even once. I mentioned her to Rachel, my girlfriend, mostly as a joke. I called her the train ghost. She's probably just deep in thought, Rachel said. You do the same thing when you're anxious. Maybe. But there was something about her stillness that didn't feel anxious. It felt intentional. One night, the train was packed, standing room only. I had to squeeze in near the doors. I craned my neck to check, and yeah, there she was. Same seat, same posture, same far-off stare. But this time, she was looking at her reflection in the window. Except the train was underground. Total darkness outside. Nothing to reflect. I couldn't stop watching her. I kept glancing over people's heads, waiting for her to blink. Scratch her nose. Adjust her back. Anything. She didn't. When the train stopped at my station, I looked back one more time before stepping off. She was looking at me. That was the first time I saw her face fully. Pale. Lips pressed tight. Eyes wide, not frightened, just aware. Like she'd known I was watching this whole time. I felt sick the whole walk home. Couldn't explain why. That night, I dreamed I was sitting across from her on the train. The car was empty except for us. She was smiling. Except her eyes weren't. The next day, I tried a different train. Left work early. Got on the 5:55. I told myself it was just to mix things up, break the routine. But I was watching. Waiting. She wasn't there. Relief. The train was loud, crowded with teenagers heading home from school. I relaxed. Headphones in, email open, normal. Then I noticed someone sitting 2 rows up. Same seat, different car. Back turned. Arms folded. Staring at the window. I couldn't see her face, but I knew it was her. She'd followed me. Or maybe she'd been here first. I got off early. Took a rideshare the rest of the way. Spent the evening pacing my apartment, convincing myself I was being paranoid. Rachel said maybe I was overtired. Burned out. I believed her. I wanted to. But the next morning, I found something slipped under the door. A train ticket. Red line. 6:42 p.m. No return trip. The date printed on it was tomorrow. I didn't go to work. I didn't leave the apartment. I sat on the couch all evening with the lights on and every window locked. When the clock hit 6:42, I swear I felt the floor hum. Just a little. Like the train was passing beneath me. That night, I dreamed I was underground. Not in a tunnel, just deep, buried. Surrounded by train sounds, but no trains. Just that low, endless screech of metal on metal. When I woke up, my pillow was damp. Like I'd been crying in my sleep. This morning, there was another ticket. Same seat number. Still no return. I think if I board, she'll be waiting. I think if I don't board, she'll come anyway. And worst of all, I think I've seen her before. Not on the train. In a photo at my parents' house. A cousin who went missing in the 90s. Disappeared on her way home from the city. Her name was Lily. I never met her. Just heard the story growing up, how she vanished without a trace. But now, I remember the photo. And I remember the seat. And I remember her face. Tonight's 6:42. I'm writing this from the platform. I don't know if it's better to get off. Or wait to see where she gets off. I never used to notice the windows. They were just part of the background, like the radiator or the faded wallpaper, things you stop seeing after a while. My apartment isn't big, just a second-floor unit above a corner deli in a quiet part of the city. It has 4 windows, 2 in the living room, 1 in the bedroom, 1 in the kitchen, all facing the same direction, the alley behind the building. The view's nothing special. Mostly dumpsters, fire escapes, and the brick wall of the opposite building. But lately, I've been watching them more. Because someone's been watching me. I didn't notice at first. It started subtly, just this vague awareness. That feeling you get when you think someone's behind you. But when you turn around, nothing's there. I chalked it up to anxiety. Work's been a mess, and I've been spending too much time online, doom scrolling until 3 a.m. You start to fray around the edges. But then I started seeing the shape. Just a silhouette. Standing at the far end of the alley, where the streetlight barely touches. I'd be doing dishes, or brushing my teeth, and I'd glance out, and there it would be. Still. Watching. Not moving, not pacing. Just there. The first few times, I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light. Maybe a utility pole or a stack of boxes that caught a shadow just right. But it didn't go away. And it wasn't always in the same place. Sometimes it was near the dumpster. Sometimes behind the lamppost. Once, it was directly under my window. It never moved when I looked at it. Only when I turned away. The night I really started to worry, I'd been binge watching some dumb crime show, trying to keep my brain occupied. I paused the TV to go get a drink, and as I walked past the living room windows, I saw it. Right outside. Close enough that I could see its outline against the alley light. It was tall, with long limbs, and something was wrong about the proportions. Like it had been stretched. Too thin in some places, too wide in others. But the part that really got me was the head. It tilted, ever so slightly, when I looked at it. As if acknowledging it. I backed away. Slowly. Pulled the curtain shut. I stood there, trying to catch my breath, listening to the quiet buzz of the fridge. Then the knocking started. Not on the front door. On the glass. Soft. Deliberate. One knock, then another, then a pause. Then again. Like it wanted me to know it was still there. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just turned off the lights and sat in the dark, waiting. Eventually, it stopped. But I didn't sleep. The next morning, the deli owner, Sal, flagged me down on my way out. He looked spooked, which is rare for him. Said he'd found something strange in the alley. Thought maybe I should know. It was a drawing. Crude, like it was done in charcoal. It was a sketch of my apartment windows. All 4 of them. And behind each one, a figure stood, watching me. I moved that night to the couch in the living room, figuring I could keep all the curtains closed, avoid the windows entirely. But even with them shut, I felt exposed. Like the walls had eyes. I heard whispers in the vents, dry and rasping, just out of range. The shape didn't show up for a few nights, and I thought maybe it had gone. Until I found the note. It was slid under my door. Folded neatly. No handwriting, just a smudge of black soot on the outside. Inside, the paper was blank. But when I tilted it toward the light, I saw faint indentations. I shaded over them with a pencil. One sentence emerged, "Turn around." I froze. I don't know how long I stood there, holding that paper. Eventually, I moved. Slowly. I turned. And in the window, behind the curtain, I saw the silhouette again. But this time, it was inside. I've been staying with a friend ever since. Haven't gone back for my things. I don't even want to know if the windows are still there. Or if they're looking out anymore. Or in. I started house sitting for my cousin while she and her fiancé went to Italy. 2 weeks, easy money. Just water the plants, feed the cat, bring in the mail. That's it. The place is out in the country, all open fields and dense woods. Peaceful. A little too quiet for my taste, but I figured it'd be good for me, get away from the city, unplug a bit, breathe some fresh air. First couple nights were uneventful. The cat, Milo, is one of those old, slightly judgmental types. He watches you like he's keeping score. But we got along fine. It was the 3rd night when I noticed the lights. Just after midnight, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. The windows faced the backyard and beyond that, the woods. I wasn't looking for anything, I was half asleep, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw a soft white glow between the trees. Faint, like a flashlight filtered through fog. I turned off the kitchen lights and stared. It flickered, there, then gone. Probably someone camping, I thought. Or a passing car. Next night, same time, I saw it again. This time it moved. Slowly, like someone walking with a lantern. I watched for a while. The glow shifted between the trunks, disappearing, reappearing. Always the same distance from the house. I didn't go outside. I told myself it wasn't my business. I was just here to feed the cat. But I started locking the back door at night. Not just locking, checking it. Twice. Then pulling a chair in front of it, which felt stupid, but I did it anyway. Then Milo started acting weird. He'd sit on the windowsill, staring into the woods for hours. No movement, no twitching tail, just frozen. If I tried to pick him up, he'd hiss. And he never hissed. The 5th night, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. exactly. No sound, no nightmare. Just a wake. Like something tapped me on the shoulder in my sleep. I lay still for a second. Listening. And then I heard it. Knocking. Not at the front door. At the back. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I didn't move. Another knock. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, crept into the hallway, and stood there, heart pounding. Silence. Milo sat by the door, ears flat, staring up like he was waiting. I pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek through the glass. No one there. Just the woods. And something glowing, deeper between the trees. I didn't sleep after that. Just sat on the couch, Milo curled up stiff beside me, both of us listening to the house creak. In the morning, I checked the backyard. Footprints. Not animal prints, bare feet. Human. Small. A trail of them in the dew, leading from the trees to the back door. And then back again. I didn't tell my cousin. I don't know what I would have said. Hey, someone's knocking on your door in the middle of the night, but also not standing there when I looked. The next night, I stayed up. No lights, no sound. Just waited in the dark. The glow came again. Closer this time. I stood by the door and listened. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the knocking started. This time, 5 knocks. Faster. I raised my phone, flashlight ready, and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. But on the glass, 5 smudged prints. Tiny handprints. From the inside. I left the next morning. Drove back to the city with Milo in a carrier and a note on the kitchen table. Sorry. Emergency. We'll explain later. That was 3 days ago. I've been sleeping with the lights on. But last night, I woke up again. 3:12 a.m. Milo was staring at the window. I live on the 5th floor. It was just a chair. An ordinary wooden chair, the kind you'd see in an old kitchen or a dusty church basement. A little wobbly, paint chipped, legs uneven. I found it on the curb a few blocks from my apartment one Saturday morning, sitting next to a broken dresser and a pile of old magazines. I wasn't even looking for furniture, but something about it made me stop. I don't know. It just looked familiar. Like something from a dream I'd forgotten. I brought it home. Set it in the corner of my living room by the window, between my bookshelf and the radiator. Didn't use it much, but it filled the space. Balanced the room. Made things feel less empty. The first thing I noticed was the creaking. At night, when everything was still, I'd hear it shift. Just once or twice. A long, wooden groan, like it was bearing weight. At first, I assumed it was the building settling. This place is old, and everything makes noise. But one night, around 2 a.m., I walked into the room to get my phone charger and stopped cold. The chair was facing the window. I never turned it that way. I stood there for a long minute, staring at it. The curtain fluttered slightly, letting in a sliver of orange streetlight. The chair sat perfectly still. Eventually I told myself I must have bumped it. Or maybe I was just tired. But the next morning, it had moved again. Only a few inches this time, but definitely not where I left it. It was angled toward the hallway. Like it had been listening. I started testing it. I'd place it exactly, take pictures, even marked one leg with a piece of tape to see if it shifted. And every night, it moved. Never while I was watching. Always while I slept or had my back turned. I mentioned it to a friend, joking at first. She laughed, told me I needed a vacation. But later, after a few drinks, she got quiet and said, "You shouldn't have brought it inside." I asked what she meant, and she just shook her head. Some things remember. It wasn't just the chair anymore. I started hearing footsteps in the hallway late at night. Not from the neighbors, no, these were inside. Soft. Barefoot. Slow. They always stopped just outside my bedroom door. When I worked up the nerve to open it, nothing was there. But the chair would be closer. The air began to change, too. Heavier somehow. Like the humidity right before a thunderstorm. I started waking up with my ears ringing, my mouth dry, heart pounding like I'd been running. The apartment smelled different. Faint, like old wood and soil. Like something buried. One night, I found a dent in the seat of the chair. An impression. The shape of someone sitting there, perfectly outlined in the dust. That was the night I stopped sleeping. I tried moving the chair into the hallway, but when I woke up the next morning, it was back in the corner by the window. Sitting slightly askew. Facing me. I tried locking it in the closet. Same result. Then I noticed the dreams. They weren't nightmares, exactly. Just wrong. I'd find myself standing in my apartment, but everything was reversed. The windows on the wrong wall, the furniture unfamiliar. The chair always in the center of the room. And someone sitting in it. I couldn't see their face. They were always in shadow. But I could feel their eyes on me. Like I was the one out of place. Like I didn't belong. The worst part is, I started seeing the chair in places it shouldn't be. In reflections. In store windows. In other people's homes. Once, I walked past a cafe and caught a glimpse of it through the glass, right in the corner. Same shape. Same worn paint. Same angle, turned just slightly toward me. And then, just last night, I saw it again, on the opposite sidewalk. In the rain. No one near it. Just sitting there under a street lamp, waiting. I ran. I don't know what it wants. But I can feel it getting closer. I think I brought something in with that chair. Something that didn't want to be moved. Something that remembers more than it should. I'm writing this from a motel 2 towns over. I left the chair behind. I didn't pack anything. But I woke up this morning and there it was. Outside my window. Facing in. I moved into this apartment just over a month ago. It's nothing special, a 3rd floor walk-up in a neighborhood that's quiet but not dead. The kind of place where you know your neighbors by name but don't really see them all the time. I work late shifts at the hospital, so most days I come home in the early morning when the streets are empty, and the world feels like it's holding its breath. The first odd thing happened on my 3rd night here. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I thought I heard my name whispered from the kitchen. Just a breath, barely there, like the sound was caught between a word and the wind. I sat up, heart pounding, but the apartment was silent. I told myself it was nothing. Probably just my imagination. But then it happened again. Every night, around 2:17 a.m., that same whisper. Sometimes it was clearer, just one word, "Hey." Other nights, it was more like a sigh, a soft hissing that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I started leaving the kitchen light on, but the sound persisted. It didn't come from outside, the windows were closed, and I lived too high up for street noise to reach. I tried asking my neighbors if they'd heard anything strange. No one had. They said I was probably stressed from work. Maybe. One night, I decided to record the sound. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and left it running while I went back to bed. When I listened the next morning, there was nothing but silence. No whisper. No sigh. Just the faint hum of the fridge. That was when the small things began. The clock on my nightstand would reset itself, always to 3:03. It didn't matter how many times I changed the batteries or set the time. The next morning, it was always 3:03. My keys would be on the table when I came home, but sometimes they'd vanish. Not lost, like taken and returned. Always found in the same place, but slightly shifted, turned the other way, or flipped upside down. I started hearing footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Slow, deliberate. Not the quick clatter of someone rushing by, but the measured pace of someone waiting. I asked the landlord about the building's history. No reports of anything unusual. Just the usual creaks and groans of an old building settling. One evening, around 2:17, the whisper was louder than ever. I followed it to the living room, where the shadows in the corner seemed to thicken, almost pooling like spilled ink. And then I saw it, a shape. Vague, almost transparent. Like a smudge of darkness against the wall. I blinked. It was gone. The next day, I found a note slipped under my door. No handwriting. Just typed letters on plain paper. I'm still here. I don't know who left it. No one else has a key. Now, every night I wait for 2:17, the whisper, the footsteps, the shadow. Sometimes, I swear the apartment breathes with me. And the clock still resets to 3:03.